across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Thank you to Ian Collins. The Housewives' Choice is back tomorrow afternoon between 1 and 4. It's drive time now. With me, JK, here until 7 on the home of free speech and common sense. And my two beautiful children are sat looking at the television at this precise moment. Ollie, off sick, bless his little arm. And Iris as well, hope you're good. So listen, welcome along, so much to talk about. And again, it's one of those days where you think, where do I start? I mean, obviously we've had the Labour announcement, haven't we? They're welfare reforms. And I don't think there's anybody listening to this, anybody in the United Kingdom who doesn't think it's about time we tightened up on a system that, yes, was set up to help those who can't help themselves, but actually now seems to help the very same people who do nothing to make that work. I mean, I was listening to Ian's genuinely sort of open-mouthed to his story about his dad in makeup earlier, and how his father had worked all his life and had been taken ill and couldn't get Jack. It's like the story we had yesterday, the lady who'd worked as a nurse for 39 years, physically attacked twice, had to give up work, no help at all. And yet you can arrive on a boat, whether the left is like this or not. You can arrive on a boat, you can arrive in this country and be given everything. You can not work because you're anxious or you're suffering whatever, and you can have your backside wiped. And yet we seemingly don't look after the people. Sorry to sound whatever, but we don't seem to look after the people who thoroughly deserve it. Liz Kendall obviously is trying to steer a middle course, the Work and Pension Secretary, because she's got her backbenchers are all jumping up and down saying, if you take away all these payments, all these poor people are going to be in poverty. Nobody wants anybody who is genuinely disabled, genuinely mentally ill and incapacitated to have anything other than support. But it's about time, as I said yesterday, that we as a society go, do you know what? Actually, here's the truth. The truth is there are millions of people scamming a system that isn't up to scratch. I mean, there was a Talk exclusive today, brilliant work by Ricky and the team. A staggering £8.8 million of your cash, taxpayer cash, is being splashed out every year, ladies and gentlemen, on free driving lessons for PIP claimants. Now, you know, we understand about independent payments, understand that there are people that need it, but £8.5 million giving them driving lessons. What do you say to harassed parents who struggle to afford to give driving lessons to their kids, work 12 hours a day and can't even afford to it just doesn't make sense. Our priorities are wrong, I think. The other big, I mean, what was that as well I said to Ian? Taxpayers are footing a £130 million a year bill for disability benefit claims linked to alcohol and drug abuse. What does that tell you? I mean, are we supposed to sit here and say, I'm very, very sorry you're a drug addict, we better shell out for you to look at... No, well, hold on a minute, take some responsibility. Is that wrong? Amy's looking at me in a shocked way. As ever, if you want to be on, 0344 499 1000. Liverpool's finest, RG is here. 0344 499 1000 on the phones. You can use the same number via WhatsApp and send a voice note to our Ryan, who's looking a little bit perplexed today. He's wearing green, which rather suits him. 0344, green around the gills. 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. The other big news of the day, Kemi Badenoch finally raises her head above the parapet and says the net zero target is absolutely unrealistic. It's taken her about 6 months to work that out. We're not going to, it's an abstract concept, and we're not going to achieve net zero by 2050. So she's actually making herself to be the net zero queen. And she says, this contrasts myself with Nigel Farage, Reform UK. This is a policy. We are against net zero. Are we? Nigel Farage popped up on Julia's programme this morning. This was how he responded. Have a listen.
She voted for legislation that is closing down our steel industry virtually as we speak. So she's one of the architects of this. She can't come along in a few years' time afterwards and say it's going to bankrupt us. I know. Richard Tyson and I were telling you that back in 2015. So who do your viewers and listeners trust? Do they trust somebody who was the architect of this disaster and also, of course, far too high energy bills for everyone in the land? Or do they trust people that had the vision to see what a terrible mistake that was? Isn't it?
Couldn't agree more. What do you make of it? Do you believe Farage? Do you believe Kemi Badenoch? I've been saying about the Tories for absolutely months. It's about time they started talking about relevant policies, about things that matter. I'll tell you who will know whether Kemi Badenoch's a little liar, pants are on fire, or whether Farage is just trying to score points, is the former chair of the Conservative Party, who has always been known to say it as it is, Sir Jake Berry, twice in 2 weeks. How are you, my old son?
I'm very well, Jeremy. Good to see and hear from you. I was driving driving back yesterday from Hay on Wye. I've been doing a bit of fishing on the River Wye.
Oh, the hard life of the
I know. And I was listening to you in the car. I'm going to say what a very, very enjoyable show. Although the jokes at Jodie's expense about Liverpool being beaten by Newcastle were a bit below the belt.
Are you a Liverpool fan, Sir Jake Berry?
I am, Jeremy.
Deal with it. Right, listen, can we start? And by the way, can I just throw into the mix, this is important, Trump and Putin currently having a conversation. We will keep you updated on Talk on any breaking news throughout the afternoon. Let's talk about welfare reforms. You're not going to like what I'm going to say. We're all having a go at Liz Kendall and we're saying, is $5 billion enough? And will you go far enough? And will you do this? We all know that the concept's fantastic, but we know it's been a system that basically has had the what's-it taken out of it for years. Why didn't the Tories do more about this? Genuine question, Sir Jake.
Well, funnily enough, we did do quite a lot. We introduced this thing called universal credit, which made it worthwhile always for people to work. We should have done more. Don't get me wrong. I'll always say that we should have done more if we should have done. It was quite hard. I know people probably have no sympathy for that. But everything we did to try and cut and reform and improve welfare was opposed by the Labour Party. We had debate after debate in the House of Commons where they'd say that food bank usages has gone up. They would literally say that you're starving people to death. We all remember the so-called age of austerity. In fact, public spending went up every single year. We've never had austerity in this country. We did quite a lot. We improved the benefit system. It then got out of control again after COVID. And I think this world in which we now live, where 50% of all new vehicles bought in Northern Ireland are bought through Motability. I don't believe that half the people who live, not even the working age, who live in Northern Ireland need the taxpayer to buy them a car. I actually support Keir Starmer. I hope this works. I don't think he's gone far enough.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, but if you are, if you are what I call a jam, or just about managing, you're a parent or you work, you've got kids or whatever, and you listen to things like taxpayers are footing £130 million a year bill for disability benefit claims linked to alcohol and drug abuse. However much the do-gooders will say, oh, Kyle's doing it again. You can be an addict, but ultimately there is choice in that. What does that say to the people who don't actually succumb to that? We've all made mistakes in our life. What about this 8.8 million quid splashed out on free driving lessons for PIP claimants? I mean, you can pretend or even attempt to be all things to all people, but what I hear about on a daily basis, Jake, is, and I really feel strongly about this, is that in this quest to try and be everything to everybody, it seems that the genuine people who deserve it, who need it, who depend on it, are missing out. I mean, that story of Ian's father, stopped me in my tracks. 40 years. Gets a serious illness and can't get anything from this country. But you can arrive, you can commit a crime, and seemingly you'll have your backside wiped. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, so, Jeremy, every hard-working family, young or old in this country, knows that everything you do, every action has a consequence. And people who are addicted to drugs, addicted to alcohol, need to understand that their actions have consequences and they shouldn't be bailed out by the taxpayer. Look, on the driving lessons issue, I think I've got a bit of a fix to this Motability scam, and I do think it's a scam, and you talked about this yesterday. You were talking about people getting a £50,000 BMW i4 effectively on the taxpayer. They're going to make a £5,000 contribution. If you get a car funded by the state, it should be the most basic model, a white, one colour, preferably something a Vauxhall built in the UK, no air conditioning, no electric windows, as long as it gets you from A to B. That is the only option you should have.
I agree.
And if you want to get something fancier, do what everyone else does. Pay for it yourself.
Couldn't agree more.
Don't expect me to pay for it through my taxes.
Let's talk about the esteemed new leader of the Tory party. I've been ranting for weeks about how Kemi Badenoch needs to stick her head above a parapet and actually say something. Today she's come out and said that Britain's key climate target of achieving net zero by 2050 is an abstract concept that should be abandoned. The Tory leader said she had been a consistent sceptic with regard to plans to reach net zero since at least 2019. Contrasting herself, she said, with Nigel Farage's party. We just heard Nigel say that's absolute rubbish from the backbenchers. She supported net zero. They all did. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I really support what Kemi said here. I mean, I've not my first rodeo here on Talk. I've been calling to scrap net zero for years. The problem with net zero it's just completely meaningless. Kemi is right. You know, the idea, but there's all sorts of problems with it. The idea that technology isn't going to deal with the carbon in our atmosphere is for the birds. We should let technology deal with it as it always has done. Humans are infinitely adaptable. We have humans who live in the Sahara Desert and humans who live in the Arctic Circle. We will find a way. We are the most adaptable species in the world. We should not bankrupt the UK's economy on the altar of net zero, not least because all we're doing is exporting jobs to China. I'm very pleased that Kemi has woken up to this. I think it's popular with the public. Look, on the issue of Nigel Farage, I've got a lot of time for Nigel, and he is right to say that he has been saying we should scrap net zero with others for quite some time. All I say is, crikey, I wouldn't mind going to the pub with him, but I'm not sure I want him round for a dinner party, because every single question he's ever asked, his only answer is, I told you so. He's right in many cases, but not in every one.
Has she changed her mind, though, truthfully? Because let's be honest, let's look back at the Tories. The man that you and I both thought was the man, Boris Johnson, could be accused, looking back now in hindsight, he went a bit net zero as well. It seems to have been the fashionable thing. But when you look at the impact, when you think about the carbon emissions of this country against the bigger nations, when you think about, and you said it, dying on the altar of net zero, billions of pounds, hundreds of thousands of jobs, bankrupting a country that's already struggling to even pay the interest on the debt it has. I don't understand, and I genuinely, I say this every single day, how all politicians don't just go, that doesn't make sense to everyday people who are struggling. That's what I want to say repeatedly.
So, Jeremy, yes, she absolutely has changed her mind, and I think she'd be the first to say that. And the reason she's changed her mind is because, to some extent, and in her defence, the facts has changed. This is the problem with net zero. About 15 years ago, someone in the Department for Transport said everyone should drive an electric vehicle. And ever since then, the government has been driving us day and night.
Nobody wants an electric vehicle.
But Jeremy,
they don't want
the wrong
them.
technology. The vehicle we should be having is a hydrogen vehicle. But we didn't know that 15 years ago, but the government policies set. The same with gas boilers and heat pumps. About 15 years ago, 10 years ago, someone said, no, we should all have heat pumps. It's the wrong technology. We should have hydrogen central heating. And this is why having legally binding net zero targets is wrong, because when technology changes, as it does, the government policy and the law doesn't change. So Kemi has had a Damascene conversion to what many of us have thought about net zero for some time. But in all fairness to her, it is a failure of the state to move with technology, as the state always fails to do. And that's the lunacy of having this legally binding target, which we can't break free of.
You've always been straight with me. I'm straight with you. It's 4:15. This from David Thomas. Jake Berry, why was it all so difficult? Your party had an 80-seat majority. What was missing, in my opinion, I'm afraid, was the desire and the will to make things happen. The Tories did not do enough. How would you answer that, JB?
Well, what I'd say is that it's hard to disagree with that. We did have a big majority, but politics in this country isn't... We don't have leaders like Donald Trump go away and debate whether that's a good or a bad thing. Parliament ultimately works via consensus, and that's a consensus of the state, i.e. the civil service, Parliament and politicians and the press. And it wasn't possible to get that sort of consensus. The reason Keir Starmer would get this through, whether his backbenchers like it or not, is that the press, the civil service and the Conservative Party and other opposition parties are supporting him in this. We didn't have that in the last Parliament because Labour told us every time we tried to do something that we were basically trying to kill people's children, which was never true then and it's not true now.
Let's take a voice note. Christian on welfare reforms. Go.
Problem is, everything that's going on with this country, nothing will change unless the society itself changes and people's ideology changes. I'm very much the only reform Trump supporter where I work, and I'm called a racist for it. So how are we expecting everything to change for the better when people's views on how the world should be are so wrong?
It's interesting, Jake, isn't it? People talk about reform, they talk about Trump. What?
Change is coming, baby. Watch this space, Christian. Change is coming.
There you go. Let's go to the phone lines. East Yorkshire. Patrick, you're on drive time. Jake Berry's with me. What you got?
Hi, Jake. Well, calm down. It was 70 years ago since you last won a domestic trophy. And secondly, Kimmy Burden, as regarding Liz Kendall, she was making a move there. Her speech today was a move on Keir Starmer. If he's going to get ousted, the backbenchers need to be brought on side And that was a good enough speech for me. I didn't say I was grieving with it. It was a good enough speech for me to show that she had some bottle, she has a little bit of personality, but she's missed the point completely. She's missed the point. The people are getting wound up in this country because of the migrants coming in and getting immediate benefits as soon as they step off the boat. Now, if you had a rule saying you're not going to get in for 5 years, you watch the crime rate go up. We're in the deep blue, the deep blue sea, really, because we don't want the crime rate to go up because they have no money, but the government give them money.
Couldn't agree. Patrick, hold that there. Could not agree more. There is the point, isn't it, Jake? Right? He makes a really salient point, which is you can arrive in this country, whether you're a criminal or a legal migrant, but so many are illegal migrants who are playing the system, and get handouts left, right and centre. And I go back to what I keep saying, and people agree, some don't. How does that look when you can't genuinely get anything when you've paid into it for years? Rubbish.
Jeremy, look, I've said before, a fundamental point of being British is our sense of fair play. And,
fair play against your own people, though.
This offends people.
Yeah.
It offends me. The fact that we have a system that discriminates against hardworking people who lived in this country their whole life. And that cannot be right. And I tell you what, people used to say to me when I go to the pub, people still do, people who are hardworking men and women who live in this country, they say, look, if someone doesn't work or someone has just arrived in this country, I expect them, in fact, I demand that that person is poorer than me and my family. I want them living on the, above the poverty line, but to have no spare money because I work. I go out to support my family. I expect people who do not do that to be poorer than me. I'm sorry, you can't say that at the moment. People who don't work, people who are swinging the leg, people who've just arrived in this country are doing better than ordinary hardworking people in this country. And that cannot continue. It is not fair. No one voted for it and no one wants it.
Couldn't agree more. Another voice note. This is Fran on welfare reforms. Go.
Jez, I hate to say this, but my mum and stepfather get a mobility car. Now, my stepfather is incredibly disabled. He has MS. He can't walk without crutches, blah, 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 blah. That being said, however, they get a very lovely Mercedes every year. They pay the extra money. But I always say, oh, Mum, that's, lovely car. But I've just always thought, how do you get a lovely car like that on mobility? Does it have to be such a fancy car?
Couldn't agree more. And Elise has just said, thank you for Jake saying that. I know someone who used the Motability allowance to buy a Lotus. It's not even funny. That's ludicrous. And that's her own mum, that Fran on the voice note, just saying it doesn't seem right, does it? Because what it's saying to you is, do you know what? Don't work, don't graft, don't pay your tax, don't not. But the minute we have this conversation, Jake, the problem that I found yesterday was, and understandably, genuine people are terrified that any cut to the welfare state benefit system is going to defunct them, the very people who need it. It needs to be a system that rewards. Like I said yesterday, I'm really happy to pay for people who can't help themselves, but I'm sick to death of paying for people who are just bone lazy, I'm sorry, and who are taking advantage.
But, Jeremy, on this point of the car, is a car is a car. A Mercedes gets you to a local supermarket as fast as a Ford Fiesta does.
It does.
On this Motability point, it should be limited to a small, modest car with no bells and whistles, nothing added on, because that would discourage people from getting a Motability car. If they thought, well, if I get a Motability car, it's got to be, and there's nothing wrong with them, by the way, I drive a Ford Fiesta, it's got to be a Ford Fiesta, and they wanted a Mercedes, they'd use their own money to get a Mercedes if they can afford it. If you need a car, you don't care what car it is, you want it for free, the taxpayer can pay for it. If, like that poor lady's father, you've got multiple sclerosis and you can't get around, a completely debilitating condition, you can get around just as well in a little Ford Fiesta or a Kia or whatever as you can in a Merc. The taxpayer should not be funding fancy big cars for anyone.
Could not agree more. Sir Jake Berry, it was an absolute pleasure. Former chair of the Conservative Party on Talk Drive, 421. We're live across the UK. Hello to Ben in Plymouth. Jez, I work in the private sector. My wife's friend's daughter claims PIP and carers allowance for 2 children aged 4 and 1, claiming they have ADHD. She's passed a driving test, is driving around in a car paid for by us working people. There's nothing wrong with her kids. She just knows how to work the bleeding system. It makes me mad when I go to work and then I know there are people like her taking advantage. What Liz Kendall, and I have to say the Tories could have done, or any future government need to do, is they need to be able to reassure the British people, right, this is what I think, who are genuinely in need, that the system was set up to help, that their help will be sustained. But they also need to make it particularly relevant and available to go into people's brains that we're not going to continue to pay for people to take advantage of the system. But then what chance have we got? You can screw the system to get into this country. You can screw the system when you're in this country. But hey, if you're born in this country and you work your ass off, you tend to get absolutely nothing. Is that fair? Of course it's not. This is Talk.
I'm very worried that Donald Trump doesn't really, I think, understand who Putin really is. Putin is an old KGB man who knows how to negotiate. He knows Trump's in a hurry, because Trump said, I'm going to get this done in double quick time. So when someone's in a hurry, the Russians always wait to the last moment and stick in conditions. And then you argue about the conditions, and then they stick in a few more. And the reality for him is that I just looked at a piece of work from somebody who said in previous negotiations, the readout in translation is that Putin is being rude about Trump in Russian.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I just texted the wife and said I'm feeling a bit rough, bit snotty. She would don't be work shy, get on with it and stop moaning. Fair enough. Leslie's in Wiltshire. I get PIP and a Motability car. I need an automatic, but that's my only request. No luxury cars should be available. I couldn't agree more. I like this. No name. Cheers, just wait now for the never-ending stream of callers whinging about what they cannot do work-wise instead of what they can do. I'm afraid most of it is just one big con trick on us, the hard-pressed taxpayers in this country. Presumably, when a lot of these people are at home, they do housework, they tidy up, they cook, they do light DIY work, so they are capable of doing something. I'm sorry, says this person, but there's a lot of work-shy scroungers in this country. Wouldn't disagree with you at all. But I get back to what I say the whole time. Then you have this whole debate because people cannot assimilate the difference between if you say there are people taking advantage of the benefit system who are work shy and who are, scrounging. They go, oh, we're all like that. No. There are many, many people who deserve it. But there are many people taking advantage. Let's bring in... Do you know, it's like... This makes me very, very happy. She's back. Oh, hold on a second. The latest, the phone call between Donald Trump and Putin has finished. Not bothered. It lasted 3.5 hours. Not bothered. Let's go to Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International Editor. Are you bothered that Trump and Putin spoke for 3.5 hours and now it's over? Please don't say yes.
I think Putin kept Trump waiting for about an hour of that time, which you can probably imagine wouldn't have gone down too well. I'm only glad that we didn't have to listen to Liz Kendall for anything like that period of time, because she was incredibly shrieky, wasn't she? I found that statement today on the government's plans to reform the benefits system quite a hard listen, and it only went on for 16 minutes. And we've already got the disability charities screeching that it's all such a shameful thing that's being done and the government should hang its head and so on and so forth. I think a lot of our listeners and viewers will wish that the government had gone a lot further. At the moment, we're only hearing that they're going to cut $5 billion off the total bill. It's very much in vague aspirational terms, and $5 billion, yeah, sure, I'm not sniffing at it. It's a good deal of money, but it's only a fifth of the projected rise in the bill. It's not going to actually reduce the bill. It's just going to reduce the amount by which it rises. So I'd have liked to have heard a lot more today in terms of tough talk.
It's interesting, actually, talking about Liz Kendall and talking about the Labour Party. They say they want to fix the broken benefit system. We had Sir Jake Berry on. I'm not blaming him entirely, but the Tories had 14 years. He said it was a lot harder for them. He said that, government, the consensus of Parliament was not where it is at now, and many of these new claimants have been post-COVID. To me, it's really simple, Isabel. We talked about this yesterday. I don't understand how you sell to the British people this dream that we live in this fair society. If you play by the rules, you don't break the law, you pay your taxes, you're a good person, you'll be all right. The absolute opposite is happening. The opposite to the point. It's a bit like diversity. I'm all for everybody having an opportunity. We've now got to a point where I'm absolutely capable of saying, I said it last week and you should have seen their faces. In many businesses, I was told this by the boss of a massive television network very recently. He said, if you're white and 25 with a journalism degree, you're screwed for the next 10 years. That is not what diversity was not meant to be about. And this is exactly what's happening with the benefit system. In trying to be, I don't know, Great Britain that helps everybody, we're not helping the British people, the people who have been here and paid their cap. We're not helping these people. We've heard too many stories. Ian Collins told this terrible story about his father earlier. Just all of us just stopped in our tracks, worked for 40 years, got a really bad illness, no help at all, scrimping and saving. That's not right when you can arrive and get everything on a plate, right?
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, didn't we? And even today, as the government claims and pretends that it's being tough on all this stuff, actually, when you listen carefully to that statement, she was giving with one hand and taking away with the other. And I don't want to see any giving at this point. We should keep the elements that are generous to the right people, the people that really need it. But it's time to start taking away a lot harder. I mean, she's actually putting benefits up for a lot of categories of people within that statement. So I just feel very unconvinced by it. It's just a green paper, which again means it's just sort of ideas at this point. And what we need is absolutely swinging cuts to this for the reasons that you and I talked about yesterday. Young people have got to get into work. They've just got to, if they're feeling a bit depressed, then, probably a good hard day's work's not going to make them feel any worse. That routine will do good for them. If they're clinically depressed, then they need to get the health care that they require, and let's try to get them better and able to work. But it should not be a lifestyle choice, which it is for too many people, and too many people that actually have cancer or multiple sclerosis or other really, really serious conditions are being asked to do too much proving. And actually, to be fair on Liz Kendall today, the minister responsible, she did say that for certain groups of people with the worst most debilitating conditions, they will not be asked to repeatedly prove that they're unfit to work.
Good. Listen, there's loads of response. We're going to play a voice note from Josh, and we'll take a couple of calls if you're all right. This is Josh. Go.
Quite close to home, my sister has 3 amazing children. 2 of them have hearing disabilities, and one of which has quite severe SEN disabilities. She receives £500 a month per child for their disabilities. But what really gets me is that she recently went for a mortgage application to try and get in the property ladder with her and her partner, and she was allowed to, or they were allowed to, put that £1,000 a month income down as income towards a mortgage, which completely baffled me, because obviously it's, in the eyes of the government, it's not meant for that at all, but they were allowed to use it.
The system definitely doesn't work. What do you think? Where are you on the Motability car issue, Isabel? Because this has caused there's always something that gets the audience going, and it is today the fact that you can get a Motability payout, and fair enough, that's absolutely right. But people are using it and buying luxury cars. Let me give you 2 examples. Caroline, the Motability car thing is not new. I know a young 20-year-old 20 years ago who got a fancy new hatchback with everything for just having asthma. She was a single mother living with her parents on the dole and had a toddler. I worked full-time with no kids and couldn't even bleed and afford a car. She had no mobility issues. She had asthma because she damn well smoked, and we were paying for a new car. But Nicola in Sevenoaks says, some people, disabled people, Jez, need an SUV to gain access at a height, take a hoist for a wheelchair and mobility exclusion. Please, can you at Talk stop tarring us all with the same brush? We're not, Nicola, actually, and I'm going to be really honest. I'm going to jump in. I keep saying, and I've said it all yesterday, the job of politicians and broadcasters, journalists, is to make the line, the difference between the genuine people like Nicola who need an SUV because of disability. I will support you forever. I'm not going to support people who think it's all right to drive a Mercedes around because they've got asthma when they smoke. That's taking the... Isn't it, Isabel? There's a massive difference there.
Look, the Motability scheme is an absolute scandal. It is riddled with abuse. And, you know, I think that if there was a radical new party in power, it would be scrapped at a very, very early stage. It would be one of the first things that should go. And it should be back to the drawing board. Let's have a scheme for the people who really, really need it and would benefit from it. And that is going to be a very small number of people. I would put the threshold extremely high to actually qualify for that, because the current system is so widely abused. You know, last time I tweeted about this, put posts on social media, I was contacted by several dealers, car dealers, who said, I no longer am prepared to be part of the Motability scheme because I have seen so much abuse of the system, and I am simply not having anything more to do with it.
Diane in Leicester, who's our next caller, she's got a great question. Diane, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello, how are you? Tell me what you want to say.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're on.
Yeah. My question is these people, I mean, like you, I completely agree. People who are disabled or have some issues that need a car because they are unable to get out of the house and do the things that they need to do are totally acceptable, that they need some assistance of some sort. My question is why is it that if you are able to claim for a disability car, that you're able to fund some part of that to upgrade your car to a better one? Surely, if you've got money available to do that, you can't be on a system for disability that allows you to have that amount of spare cash.
I could not agree more. Isabel Oakeshott?
I mean, I'm just not a believer that anyone is entitled to very fancy cars at taxpayer expense. I am a believer that very seriously disabled people are entitled to good cars at taxpayers' expense that work for them and enable them to get about. I don't believe that people are entitled to luxury cars. I drive a car that was made in 2010. You know, no one needs luxury cars. They're just that. They are a luxury. We need cars that get from A to B, and the taxpayer, in my view, should not be funding fancy cars for anybody. I mean, they should be funding functional cars that do the job and allow disabled people the independence that they deserve.
Couldn't agree more. Finally, on this subject, we'll move to net zero in a tick. Trevor in Kent. Jez, when you pick a Motability car, the lease cost is calculated. You pay a fixed deposit and your PIP payment goes towards that leasing cost. The difference is then paid by the claimant. So technically, you can pick whatever car you want. I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm inspired by people like Matt, as you will be, Isabel. He says, I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism 20 years ago at school. I work, Jez. I don't claim a single penny. I never have, even during the hard times. I buy my own car. It can be done if you've got the will to do it. People, in my humble opinion, and he says, and listen, you'd have to listen to this guy, have become too bloody entitled. That's what we need to discuss here. I haven't taken advantage of the system. Couldn't agree with Matt more. Before you go, Isabel, really interesting. Kemi Badenoch, yes, she's the leader of the Tories, stuck ahead above the parapet today and said that Britain's key climate target of achieving net zero by 2050 is, in her words, an abstract concept that should be abandoned. Immediately, Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, have we got the clip ready? This was his response. He jumped straight in with Julia. Have a listen.
She voted for legislation that is closing down our steel industry virtually as we speak. So she's one of the architects of this. She can't come along in a few years' time afterwards and say it's going to bankrupt us. I know. Richard Tice and I were telling you that back in 2015. So who do your viewers and listeners trust? Do they trust somebody who was the architect of this disaster and also, of course, far too high energy bills for everyone in the land? Or do they trust people that had the vision to see what a terrible mistake that
Isn't it?
That was really brilliant. Isabel, can I just ask you something? Because then we had the whole thing with him saying Badenoch used to support it. Then we had Sir Jake Berry on and he said, yeah, I think she probably did, but she's changed her mind. So is she stealing the Reform's limelight, or is she enlightened and woken up to the reality that net zero will indeed bankrupt this bloody country and needs stopping?
Well, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, isn't it? And, you know, maybe Reform should be pleased for the state of the country that the Conservatives have so belatedly woken up to the giant con trick that is net zero, which is only going to be harmful for our country, our economy and our people. But really, are people seriously going to be deceived by this belated conversion? The Conservatives are to blame for why we are where we are with net zero. They had 14 years to see the light. Instead, they just carried on gilding the lily here. They gold-plated it. They made it bigger and ever more of a burden on the state, on ordinary people, on the cost of living. And for Kemi Badenoch to belatedly say, oh, actually, it's a bit unrealistic to do it by 2050, I give that as much credibility and as much respect as I do listening to Tories now saying, oh, oops, immigration's a bit of a disaster, isn't it? We made a few errors there. Do you remember that speech that she did a few months ago? We made mistakes. Thanks for that. And now the whole country's paying for them. And it's not reversible. You can't reverse millions and millions of people coming in, and you can't reverse the damage already caused by the Conservatives' net zero nonsense. I
love what you just called it, a giant con trick. Isabel Oakeshott, before you go, I've got a question for you. If you look over your left shoulder, did you like the roses I sent you?
Thank you, Jezza. I mean, who knew who they came from? I mean, if I turned the camera, you'd see a vase full of white roses. You know, this is how we roll.
It is indeed, but the red ones were from me. Isabel Oakeshott, thank you very much indeed. 20 to 5, we're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive. What do you want to talk about? Anything you want. PIP, Motability cars, net zero. You can talk about... Well, I don't care what you talk about. It's your show. We're coming back in 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mike's back tomorrow from 6. The best breakfast show, the best way to wake up. On Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. It's drive time, 17 minutes to 5. Tuesday afternoon. Hi, Jez. Derek from Norfolk. Or where do I do that? Norfolk. A PIP is not means tested. That's the problem. Millionaires can get it if they qualify health-wise. Interesting. Jez, I know someone has a mobility car and doesn't even look after it. It's in a filthy state. 0344 499 1000. Let's move it on. You might have heard Donald, you might not care, but we do. Donald Trump has been on the phone to Vladimir Putin for 3.5 hours. Apparently they were going to talk about how they were going to get peace done in Ukraine. Many people up in arms saying Zelensky should be involved. Many people up in arms saying Trump is being, you know, he's Putin's poodle even. Other people are saying Trump is playing a game. He's going to get peace at all costs. It'll stop the killing. Let's go to the chair of Republicans overseas, good mate of ours, Greg Swenson. Greg, good afternoon. How are you, pal?
Jeremy, great to see you.
Good to see you too. 3.5 hours. Jesus God, can you imagine that length of those two talking? Second time these leaders have spoken since the inauguration in January. The US President, Trump, said that he wanted to discuss power plants, land and dividing up certain assets. Can I ask you, as a Republican supporter, is it fair and right that Vladimir Zelensky is not involved in these chats?
Well, for now, of course it's fair. I mean, he's brokering peace. When you broker, you're the in-between, you're the go-between. And so it's typical Trump derangement syndrome. If a Democrat was doing this or a person of the left, they'd be giving them the Nobel Peace Prize. So, you know, I'm not too worried about that. And yes, of course, Zelensky will be involved. President Trump has said on many occasions that he wants to get them together at some point. But they've been at this for 3 years, and they haven't exactly been getting along. So why put them in a room right now if it's not productive?
What's the feeling in America about Trump 55 days in? We've heard about the tariff wars. We've heard about the attempt to find peace in Ukraine, the attack the other day in the Middle East on the Houthi rebels. We've heard about, you know, the borders and everything. Some people are saying the markets are collapsing. Others are saying that popularity is going through the roof. He's a very polarizing figure. What's the overall view, Greg?
The overall view is he's polling at his much better than he was in his first term. He's come down a couple of points in the last few weeks, but not much. He's still basically even approve, disapprove, whereas at this time in 2017, he was -4. So for Trump, this is good. And also, the things that he's doing are polling really well. And so right now, the Democrats are at a low they haven't seen since 1990. They're polling at roughly at 30%, even in the 20s, depending on the poll.
What, with all those bleating Hollywood stars crying into their green juices? Really? I thought there'd be more.
Yeah, a few have moved away, which I find amusing. But look, he's doing really well. And more importantly, the things that he's doing are polling even better than President Trump is polling. So that's a good sign. The mass deportation is polling at 80. Some of the things that they've already passed in Congress are 80-20 issues as well. And the Democrats, for some reason, still are supporting the 20%. You know, let's have men play in women's sports. That makes sense, right? So the common sense election has really kicked off a common sense governance, and that's polling really well.
That's good to hear. Just one other thing quickly, Greg. Great to have you on as ever, my friend. We so appreciate your time. Prince Harry, there's this thing about the immigration files. As we know, he got into America with that dreadful woman, whatever you want to call her. And then it transpired when he wrote Spare, the book, he admitted taking drugs. Now, you can't have that and get into America. One rule for him, one rule for the others. It seems that Biden's government, his administration, was happy to sort of quash this. Though these files are going to be made public, they thought Trump might kick up. And he said the other day, the line of all lines, I think I'll just leave it because he's got enough to deal with that dreadful wife of his. Do you think he'll be fine? I've got a theory. I want you to not laugh at me. I think he wants to be thrown out, Harry, so he can get to leave her.
Yeah, you do anything to leave her. And so I think, you know, you fake dead, you'll get yourself caught, you know, robbing a bank or something. You know, maybe he's desperate. I don't think President Trump really cares. I think, if anything, he'd intervene on his behalf just because he feels sorry for him. But I doubt it. You know, it's probably not that important. Right now, he's busy deporting real criminals, actual criminals who are, on their way to El
Imagine
Salvador.
if you had a leader that said, you're not here with any papers, you do nothing for society and you commit crime, I'm going to deport you. I saw about a week after the inauguration, and I still say this to everybody, and they go, I know you've told me. I saw some news footage of people on the border going, there's no point in trying to get in now. Trump won't let us in. And I thought, yes, that's exactly what he said he was going to do. Imagine having a politician in your country that would do what he says he's going to do.
It's amazing. And, the critics are always suggesting that he never tells the truth. He's a liar. Okay, maybe there's some hyperbole here and there, but he exaggerates. But he's actually much more honest. Joe Biden and his Homeland Security Department, Mayorkas, were telling the American people that the border was closed, that the border was secure. Last February, 300,000 illegals were apprehended at the border. All were admitted to the country. This past February, 800. It's just amazing the difference between the two. And at least he's honest about it. Maybe it was 8,000, by the way. Don't quote me. But whatever it is, it's a 95+% drop from what Biden was doing, while at the same time telling America that the border was just as secure as need be.
Well, I'll just give you this before we let you go. Breaking news, Russia has just released a statement on the conclusion of that phone call. Under the leadership of President Putin and President Trump, the world has become a much safer place today. So that would suggest that there is movement. We'll keep you updated. Greg Swenson, chair of the Republican Overseas, friend of the show and the station. Thank you so much indeed. It's 11 minutes to 5. If you want to be part of this vain attempt at a radio programme, 0344 419 1000. We're coming back in 3.
I'm very worried that Donald Trump doesn't really, I think, understand who Putin really is. Putin is an old KGB man who knows how to negotiate. He knows Trump's in a hurry because Trump said, I'm going to get this done in double quick time. So when someone's in a hurry, the Russians always wait to the last moment and stick in conditions. And then you argue about the conditions, and then they stick in a few more. And the reality for him is that I just looked at a piece of work from somebody who said in previous negotiations, the readout in translation is that Putin is being rude about Trump in Russian.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, Minister 5, he's a cheeky git. Graham in Bushy, have you heard this? If Harry leaves Meghan, she could be your fourth wife. Don't it? Honestly, very, very happy. Thank you very much indeed, you cheeky git. Stephen Ilfragoon. Let's be honest, Jez. Boris Johnson is to blame for this net zero rubbish. About time everyone woke up to what an awful Prime Minister he was. Responsible for the terrible state of this country today. Take some responsibility. When you get PIP, you only get a mobility car entitlement if you're on a high rate of both elements. And if you take... What? Oh, right, OK. Helen, this is another story. Helen, thank you so much indeed. What about this, Jess? 30-year-old woman, 2 kids, one with ADHD, another on the way, has never had a job in her life, £4 a month from the government, plus a brand new hybrid car, and wait for it, that's worth 40 grand and £80 a month petrol. Are we all facing the wrong bloody way? Why do we bother to go to work? The world's gone nuts. 7 minutes to 5 to the phone lines, to the West Midlands. Freya, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Whoa, I'm really surprised to be engaged in this way. I'm not usually a person that is of any interest whatsoever. However...
Well, you phoned.
Pardon?
You phoned, you're on.
Oh,
You're a little. Don't worry about it, you're fine.
I did indeed.
Take your time.
My first comment was I was classified by Coventry, I forget who it was, some kind of health person. I was classified as being too depressed to accept responsibility, and it utterly devastated me, and that's going back into the 70s, late 70s, 80s, after I'd tried to help in psychiatric units, working as an art therapist, and I found it very hard. But at that time, there was somebody I could talk to, and they said, oh, what have you got? What can you do? And I said, well, I can sew. And they sent me off to a costume hire workshop, and I had the best time ever with lovely people, all dedicated to making costumes for, as it happens, Coventry Transport Museum. I felt I belonged. I felt a sense of, life isn't over. And I think these sick people, as I was, they ought to be given a more of a chance to work in the community. And that may sound a bit, I don't know. It certainly wasn't awful for me.
No, I really like your point, and I think there's something. The problem, Freya, with this whole debate is that when any government or any politician talks about cutting, benefits, welfare benefits, naturally, and I genuinely mean this, we all recoil and say, well, there are really, really desperate people who really need our help, and that's the whole point of it. But the system has got to a point where so many are taking advantage. But I agree, there also has to be that sort of old-fashioned belief, doesn't there, that you can't accept it's over. You have to try, whether it's to do a bit of charity work or to do something in the community. Your example's absolutely perfect. There has to be a side to this argument that says that we're not saying you've got to work, we're not disrespecting what's wrong with you, but maybe it would help you if you did something, however minimal. It's such a difficult subject. I mean, just very quickly, from your point of view, would you accept that there are people claiming many benefits in this country who don't deserve it and are taking advantage of the system?
Well, what can I say? I think, well, if you're going to get me on that track, I think hospital trusts have been the absolute destruction of our health system.
I think that's right, but that's another subject. Listen, I really, genuinely mean this. Whereabouts in West Midlands, by the way?
Pardon?
Whereabouts are you in the West Midlands?
In centre of England.
Oh, bless your heart. Really appreciate you being on, Freya. Thank you so much indeed for calling. Let's go to Manchester. Rachel, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes only, Rach. What you got?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm just really, really disappointed with the way that you and Jake were talking about disabled people before and what sort of cars we should be able to drive. I've got multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed when I was 21. I worked up until 2009. I always bought my own cars. And it was only, 5 years ago where I got the full entitlement to PIP after a massive soul-destroying fight. And then, I've got two really wealthy people there arguing the toss about what they deem is suitable for a disabled person.
Well, let me make the point back then, and listen. That's what debate's about. Love having you on. Genuinely mean that. The argument is that Jake Berry was making, which I do agree with, is a car's a car, isn't it? You surely would understand. No disrespect to anybody. I have said from the minute this debate started that we as a society should absolutely support people who can't support themselves. And that will include giving cars to people who need that mobility issue. But you would struggle, Rachel, would you not, to convince people who are struggling, who are not on any benefits, who are struggling to pay their bills and are working, that somebody with a disability should be driving around. We've heard examples in BMWs or Lotuses. Surely a car is a car that gets you from A to B. I don't see how you can assume that that says wealthy people are talking about that. I absolutely think you should have a car. I don't think it should be a Rolls Royce, and I'll stand by that.
Well, it's not. I mean, they're not on the scheme anyway. I've got a Nissan X-Trail now.
Yeah.
Which I needed a...
do you understand why some people would be?
Well, I do, because they're ignorant and they do not believe in disabled people. I mean, I've got my own sister who I don't talk to anymore, who basically said that I'm not disabled, that I just pretend, you know.
Well, you are. You've got multiple sclerosis, and that's a ridiculous thing, and that's your own blood. Well, I guess go on.
People, I mean, I was 21 when I was diagnosed, and going in to see, you know, into a disabled spot, I'd have all these people looking at me saying, "Are you using that? It's a disabled spot. That it's a disabled spot." And it's
the problem with an illness like MS, of course, people are ignorant because they cannot see it. I wanted to get you on, Rach. I understand your side of the argument. I would repeat. I have to go to the news. I would repeat. I totally and utterly support people like yourself having the support of a mobility issue, but I think people would find it hard if they look at people garnering the system and having a nice car. What do you make of it, my friends? 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Voice notes on the same via WhatsApp and text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. The news at 5 is next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
My friends, second hour of Talk Drive for Tuesday. This is JK till 7. Thanks for tuning in. We are, of course, the home of common sense. Even Donald Trump's using that now. Whatever you want to talk about, it's your show, it's your station, it's your life. Where did that come from? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. I don't know what you want to talk about. You want to talk about Labour's attempt to, if you like, change the welfare and benefit system. I think everybody applauds the fact that they want to take some of the people who are screwing the system and say you're not doing that anymore. But there is natural concern amongst genuine people who need help and want help. Are they going to be screwed as well? Many Tories are saying, you haven't gone far enough. But Liz Kendall, what did you do for 14 years then? Absolutely zilch. Net zero. Badenoch sticks her head above the parapet today and says, we can't be achieving these targets by 2050. It's unrealistic. It's a giant con job. Really, Kemi? Just woken up to that rubbish, have you? Reformers, Nigel quite rightly says, have been saying that for the past 10 years. Is that now the popular thing? Why would it be popular to be against net zero? Oh, yeah, I know. We only release about 1%, whereas the rest of the world does the rest. They're not asked, and we're more bothered about screwing. I mean, talk about bankrupting a country and costing hundreds of thousands of people jobs. That's what net zero is, my friends. 0344 499 1000. We're going to head to Nottinghamshire. Amanda, a new caller. You're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon to you. How are you?
Afternoon. Nervous.
I'm nervous too. Let's be nervous together.
Okay.
I am nervous. Why are you laughing, Evelyn? I am nervous. I get very nervous doing this.
What I'm calling about is PIP. I don't believe that anyone that needs it, they should have it if they need it.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people out there that are disabled that do need it.
Yes.
But what no one actually thinks about is the fact that if you're on PIP, say you get X amount of pounds a month for PIP, and then you retire, or should I say you get to pension age, you get your PIP and you get your pension. The PIP doesn't go down, the PIP doesn't go away, it stays with your pension. And then people that haven't worked all those years and have been getting PIP also don't have a full pension. And because they don't have a full pension, they can then turn around and say, oh, well, I need pension credit because I don't get full pension. PIP doesn't get counted into anything. It doesn't get taxed. It doesn't get counted into anything. So all you get is somebody that now is on pension, gets pension credit, gets X amount of pounds PIP, and they are so well off. Me, myself, I've worked all my life. I've never been off work. I am now retired. I just get my pension.
Yeah.
That is it.
It's a really... And do you know actually what your call does? Is it symbolises the difficulty of this conversation, but not one that we're too scared to have on this station, because many people wouldn't want to have it because they fear, what people would say. I repeat, and I've been saying it for 2 days, Amanda, I am really happy to pay my taxes to support a system that says we're going to help people who can't help themselves. I am sick to death of being ripped off by the taxman to pay for scroungers, lazy do-gooders who don't want to do anything. And I don't care if that doesn't go down well with people, because it is a fact. Here's Tony in Newcastle. Tony Pickering. Listen to this. Let you answer this, Amanda. Is anyone able to explain to me, he says, why 60 years ago there was no housing benefit, no mobility payments, no PIP, in fact very little? How the hell did we all survive, Jez? How come we didn't end up going off work for 16 years saying we got a mental illness? Amanda?
Exactly.
And you just, you know what? Maybe it is this station. You couldn't or shouldn't. People don't want to say that, but it's true. I am all for supporting people who are mentally ill. Excuse me. I am all for supporting people with disability. But we need, as a society, to face up to the fact that the systems are being taken advantage of because they're too lenient, and we will become a laughingstock. That's why this country is full of illegal migrants, because we give the best to everybody, but not to our own. What is wrong with that as a phrase?
Don't get me started on that, please. And can I just say my husband is to blame for all this, because he made me watch talkTV, and you have got me riled up, and that's why I wanted to put my point across.
Do you listen to Mike Graham in the morning?
We listen to all of them, all
Good.
of you. We listen to all of you. He's an avid watcher. But
I bet the rest of them don't eat grapes while they're doing it. That's all I've got for my tea. Now, listen. Thank you so much indeed, Amanda, a new caller in Nottinghamshire there on talk. What is it, 7 minutes past 5, 0344 499 1000. Grapes, ass's milk, never mind. Let's go, listen, another man whose career I've saved. A man who lost his seat. He'd been a Conservative MP for the Ribble Valley, about 140 years. Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, and I found him working, doing the fries in Little Chef, and now he's a commentator. Nigel Evans, good afternoon. Look at him, he's looking marvellous. Where are you?
Good afternoon. You've got a great memory.
It's like chasing you round the United Kingdom. Where are you this week? What are you doing this week?
Welcome to Helsinki. It's freezing. It was snowing last night, but it's not so bad today. But I'm here just for a couple of days. I've never been here before, so it's fascinating.
Can I just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Nigel Evans is lying. He's not in Helsinki. He's in Turkey. He's going to have his teeth and his hairline done. That's what you're having done, Nigel.
I had the teeth done just before I lost my seat.
Oh, bless you. Listen, loads to talk about. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Love it. I'm going to turn it on its head. I'm going to talk about net zero. I'm described by Isabel Oakeshott as a giant contract trick, basically. It seems that your leader, Kemi Badenoch, has today woken up to the reality that many people, certainly on this station, people in Reform and others have been saying for years. She said that Britain's key climate target of achieving net zero by 2050 is an abstract concept that should be abandoned. Farage comes straight out the traps and says, hold on a minute, love, hold on a minute. You were on the back benches voting for this rubbish when we were saying in 2015 this is going to cost billions of pounds, it's going to bankrupt this country, and it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of people jobs. So are the Tories copying? Are they waking up to the reality? Because, Nigel, let's be honest, it is ludicrous with what this country is going through that anybody is even contemplating this concept, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this is the coffee, and we've just started to wake up and smell it, Jeremy. It's as simple as that. You can't carry on in the way that we have been doing at the time that we are, ensuring that there is no coal-powered stations in the United Kingdom. China have opened a ton of them, and we are responsible for such a minute part of the problems that the world are facing. And yet China, India, the United States of America even are the big contributors towards it. And it seems as if they are drill, baby drill, and carrying on using coal. We cannot penalise British firms who are competing on the world market by these sorts of targets when our goods are going to be so much more expensive. And indeed, if you think about it, our fuel bills domestically are so much more expensive. We were told by this government, by the way, that fuel bills were going to drop by £300 a year. I'm still waiting.
Well, I don't know about you, but mine's gone up. But I don't, I've had this conversation repeatedly about, whether these people are mad. I understand. I mean, my kids say to me, come on, surely you care about climate change. And I flippantly say, your generation can deal with that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I come from another age. But for me, pensioners freezing, veterans homeless, farmers having their land taken, people who can't see a GP. I consider we've enough crap going on in this country that should be, I think, at the centre of what we focus on right now, rather than chasing this impossible dream that we know is going to bankrupt a country that can't even afford to pay interest on what it owes right now, Nige?
Yeah, there's a ton of problems out there. You've mentioned quite a few of them, not a comprehensive list, I hasten to add. And people, normal people I'll call them, are concerned about those things that impact on their daily lives. And so I'm really pleased to see Kemi announcing the fact that we're going to forget that target. It can't be easy for her, Jeremy. Just remember this, that the Tory party is a broad church.
Yeah.
And there will be some within the party that will be very unhappy that she has made the pronouncement that she's done today. But the message is this: the Tory party are under new management, and if you don't like it, then I'm afraid you're either going to have to lump it or you should perhaps look elsewhere, because...
what do you make of it? What do you make? Are you pleased the way that she's gone today?
I'm really pleased that she's done this. Yeah, we could have carried on making pronouncements and making gestures towards an unrealistic target and heaping costs on industry, which is going to lead to unemployment. It's going to lead to firms closing. I mean, can you imagine running a firm which has seen your energy bills going up again and again and again, and a lot of it is artificially heaped up by the fact that we've got these artificial targets that are ensuring that we are accessing energy at much, much higher prices.
I know a guy in the town that I live in who set up his own dry cleaning business. Do you know why he's had to shut it? Because he can't afford the electricity.
I can only
it's costing him £18,000 a year, let's just say. It's gone up fivefold, and it's not viable. And he was really good at what he did.
There'll be a ton of industries and firms that have looked at these electricity bills and gas bills that have come in. And actually, a lot of them, Jeremy, every quarter will be frightened as to how they're going to pay those bills. Can you imagine it? And then the realistic end for some of them is just going to be that they're going to close the businesses, that they get up at 6 in the morning to run and they work 18-hour days, and a lot of the money that they could have otherwise been making is being siphoned off into paying higher energy bills. It's about time that we woke up and smelt the coffee, quite frankly.
Let's talk about the welfare reforms briefly, because I want you to have a nice time in Helsinki and not be stuck with me. I'm going to put to you what I put to Sir Jake. He rather sort of twisted. I know you won't. Everybody is saying, yes, this is really important, that there are people screwing the system, right? That is an absolute fact. There is always fear when politicians talk about the benefit system, whether it's universal credit, PIP. A lot of genuine people phoning these shows across the last 48 hours saying, I absolutely depend on this. This is ludicrous. Tell me I'm going to be safe. The messaging has to be right. But it also has to be right to say that if we're spending £130 million a year dealing with alcoholics and drug abuse people in terms of benefits, if we're spending nearly £9 million on free driving lessons for PIP, if we're hearing stories of people getting Motabilities, getting Lotuses and BMWs, it makes an absolute mockery, does it not, of people going to work, paying their taxes and thinking, hold on a second, I'm doing... That does not diminish or disrespect in any way the genuinely mentally ill and disabled people, but Nigel, is it not time? This is what I would do if I was Kevin Badenoch, that somebody stood up and said, I'm afraid, like it or not, there are people, scroungers, lazy dossers in this country who need to be taken off. What is just... it's a freebie. There's too many freebies. I really genuinely believe that.
I guess there's a ton of people listening to your show. Some of them have just phoned in and said, listen, I'm genuinely ill and I need the support that I'm getting, right? And where people are genuinely ill, the taxpayers like myself and like yourself want to ensure that our money is being effectively spent. But we know that there is a ton of money out there too that is either being wasted or being misspent. And that's what we want to see stop. I think the huge question for me is, why has the bill gone up so dramatically over the past 5 years, way and above?
Is it COVID? Is it COVID?
Some of it may be COVID, and there's a lot of hidden costs as far as COVID is concerned, particularly on the mental health care, where we thought it was great to shut everything down, and there'll be a lot of young people who were told that they couldn't even mix, even though COVID really wasn't a threat to them. So there's going to be some cost to that, but the real increases that we've seen over the past 5 years are colossal, and you either rein it in, or quite frankly, it's not going to be worth any. It's not going to be worth any of us working in the future, because we'll be spending so much of our hard-earned money in taxation to pay for runaway benefits, and so we've got to get a grip. And I think when I was sitting in the House for 32 years, when the Tories were in power, whenever we started talking about welfare cuts, the Labour Party were up in arms. It is refreshing to hear them say now that they're going to make some cuts, but quite frankly, as a percentage of the total welfare bill, 5 billion is just a small step in the right direction.
Sir Jake Berry said that every time the Tories, during their 14 years, tried to deal with this, they were accused they were going to kill people, and the blob was involved, and there wasn't anybody on side. And now, of course, everybody is on Starmer's side, because the the Tories are saying, yes, we agree with this. Do you think it'll go far enough? I mean, it's obviously being sold to the Labour backbenchers, but I'm talking about the genuine hard-working jams. I do it every day, just about managing those people. They will look at this as they look at immigration and go, oh, right, so I'm eighth in the queue. They'll look at this benefits and go, what? So not disrespecting you, your kid's got asthma and you're driving around a BMW. Why am I getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and driving my rickety old van to work and doing 12 hours and barely being able to pay for my kids and my bills and my rent or my mortgage? It doesn't make any sense, Nigel. It's just, you said it. You just said something that I think we should just blow up and put out there the whole time. You said we're going to get to a point where people will say it's not worth working. What does that say?
You know, I think people tend to be very savvy on these things, and you know, the government has introduced this thing whereby if you whistleblow on your boss, who you know is cheating the system, you're going to get a percentage of that money. You remember that? It was announced a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Then why don't they do something similar to this as well? Because there will be people out there who will know that there are people swinging the lead, that they know that there are people claiming and also going out to work. We're not stupid. We know that this happens, and it has happened ever since the welfare system began. I don't know how large it is, but the fact is, why don't you incentivize people to say, listen, I know the person I'm living next door to is claiming benefits, and I know, because we know that the Motability car that they're running around in, and also they've got a job that they're doing. We just got to get a grip, Jeremy. The public have had enough. What we want is a touch of common sense. What we want to ensure is that those people with proper disabilities, and as you said, some of them with multiple sclerosis and others, people do genuinely need support. But you cannot sustain a welfare budget. For instance, we talked about immigration into the country, the illegal immigrants, costing well over £5 billion every year. Now, the government said they were going to get a grip on that when they stopped the Tory Rwanda scheme, and we've seen nothing other than more immigrants coming in on a daily basis. That welfare bill is going through the roof too, and it's about time that we heard the government were going to get real and start to tackle that problem, because people are fed up. They really are fed up.
Do you think the Tories could have done more? Do you think they could have tackled welfare reforms? I know it's changed in the last 5 years, but, you know, I've had emails today saying that the concentration on net zero and not making those decisions can be laid fairly at Boris Johnson's door. And I think part of that is fair, and Sunak's to a degree. I know Tories will always come up with the excuse, there was COVID, there was this, there was that, but the truth of the matter is there have been people scamming the benefits, and I'm sure Labour did say all that. But what happened to the conviction politician that said, I don't care, I've got a majority, I'm pushing this through because this is right for the hard-working, right-minded people of this country? What happened to that?
Yeah, well, in 2019, the Tories were elected with a majority of 80, and that was the time when they could have made real changes. Yeah. I'm afraid we wasted the opportunity that we had in 2019. We've paid a very heavy price with seeing 251 Tory MPs losing seats that they either held or should have been held. And so we've been pushed out into the wilderness now. Kemi has got one choice, and the Tory party have got one choice too. As they're waking up smelling the coffee on welfare reform, they might as well smell the coffee on other aspects of what went wrong in the 2019 to 2024 period when the Tories were in government. And they can either come forward with genuine policies that the public are going to support again, or the wilderness is going to be a bit longer and a bit colder, and it could last way longer than 2029 when we expect the next general election.
Nigel, is she the right person to lead the Tories? A lot of people are saying she'll be gone by Christmas. Others are saying no, this is the beginning of an era. What? Not asking you to be disloyal. Has she got enough about her in your mind, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I voted for her, and I think she has made steps in the right direction. They're not big enough and they're not fast enough. And my real fear is that we're expected not to do as well at these local elections that are coming up. We're expected to lose seats because the last time we had the local elections on this cycle, we had a bit of a bounce because of the successful COVID vaccination schemes. And of course, if Kemi cannot indicate to the party, both within the Commons and the wider membership that she is making the right steps big enough and fast enough, then she may not have the opportunity of another 12 months in which to show herself to be the person that I know she is.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, it's lovely to have you on. I hope the teeth transplants and the hair thing goes well in Helsinki.
I'm not having the hair done. No, the teeth, yes, the eyes, yes, but that's it.
Love your honesty, Evans. Thank you so much indeed. Former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons and Conservative MP for the Ribble Valley for 32 years, the amazing Nigel Evans. Always good to have him on. 5:22. We're live across the UK. Sean's in Merseyside. Jez, I'm in receipt of PIP due to being deemed to be unfit to work by medical professionals and the DWP. Me receiving PIP is crucial as it pays for my support and carers. It absolutely terrifies me that these benefit cuts are going to take it away. The government don't give a hoot about the people in this country. It is disgusting. Sean in Merseyside, you see, that you're who I'm talking about. I'm very happy to pay my taxes and come to work despite the fact I've got a cold. That's how hardworking I really am today, because I should be. No, I'm joking. Sean, you're the system. That's what the system is for. But I understand it scares you. But we have to believe in a system that is going to benefit, or rather help people who need it. It needs to be taken away. Here's the thing, Sean. It needs to be taken away from people who don't deserve it, because that is stopping it going to people who do, like you. Caroline's in Staffordshire. Totally agree with you, Jez, that if the young want to care about net zero, then let them worry about it when those over 50s like me have died. Harsh maybe, but I would rather be warm and not living in poverty. Thank you very bloody much. Couldn't agree more. Hello to Alan, Merseyside. Jez, I think I'm right. Not only do they get a mobility car, they also have the car insurance paid for them. So stop this. And if they had to pay the insurance themselves, I wonder if they would want a luxury car. Interesting. Finally, just for now, Alex, a great show. He says, I love listening, really. On benefits, my boy is autistic and is entitled to DLA. When he was approved for this, me and my wife were encouraged and offered more to stop working to go down looking after him full time. But because we want to work, we get less. We are worse off because we want to work. We also got offered one of these cars, but declined as we have a car already. Oh, my God. So that's Alec, whose son was diagnosed as autistic, and the system said, why don't you and your wife give up work and we'll pay you to do that? You'll earn more by doing absolutely bugger all than you will by working. And he said, no, working is part of who I am. How can you tell me that a system that says we will pay you more to not work than work is good? It's an absolute bloody joke. 5:25 on Talk.
I'm very worried that Donald Trump doesn't really, I think, understand who Putin really is. Putin is an old KGB man who knows how to negotiate. He knows Trump's in a hurry because Trump said, I'm going to get this done in double quick time. So when someone's in a hurry, the Russians always wait to the last moment and stick in conditions. And then you argue about the conditions, and then they stick in a few more. And the reality for him is that I just looked at a piece of work from somebody who said in previous negotiations, the readout in translation is that Putin is being rude about Trump in Russian.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 5:27, live across the UK. Ryan's just admitted, because there was an advert there about winning £1 million, he's just admitted that he is in fact a multi-millionaire. He just says this is a bit of fun. And I said to him, it must be a bit of fun for you because you do it so badly. I'm only joking. Don't get stressed or anxious or take a month off because you... Never mind. 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. I feel a disagreement coming on. This is always healthy. The Deputy Director of the Conservative Environment Network, an independent forum for Tories in the UK and around the world who support net zero, nature restoration and resource security, is John Flesher. God, John, you might be into all of that, but you haven't got a light. I can't even see your face, man. Are you all right?
I have got a light in here. It's not very bright though, is it?
Yeah, you see, you need more electricity. That won't be done by wind farms. Right, John, welcome to the show. Today, the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, caught up, it seems, with Nigel Farage, and what most people in this country are saying, has said that Britain's key climate target of achieving net zero by 2050 is an abstract concept that should be abandoned. It seems, John Flesher, that even the new Tory leader has worked out that where we are as a country, with everything creaking and stretched, this is going to bankrupt the United Kingdom. It's going to cost jobs, and this obsession is not in the best interest of the British people. Surely you understand that.
I think I certainly understand it if we do it the wrong way, and I think I'd make a big distinction between net zero, which is a goal I think we need to reach, we should reach, and Labour's plans for getting to net zero, which I think will cause exactly the sort of problems you're talking about, rising energy costs, job insecurity. That's exactly the kind of thing we need to avoid.
Stop me there and help me. Treat me as a complete idiot, right? Just treat me as an idiot because I am. We should reach it. Says who? Says who?
Says the International Energy Agency, say virtually all of the world's climate scientists, say the British people. I mean, you talked before and said that this was something that was unpopular. Show me the polls. Poll after poll, showing, including Tory voters, shows significant support for reaching net zero. What they want is the political class to work out how to do it properly and avoid those negative consequences.
So help me, and if I'm wrong, I'll put my hands in it. You're telling me that a majority of the British people support net zero?
Correct. You would struggle to find a poll that doesn't show that, and I would include just Tory voters in that. Reform voters, it's a little bit more of a complicated picture, but you would struggle to find a poll that doesn't demonstrate significant public support for this goal. But that support is only, I don't take that for granted in the slightest, that support is only going to be meaningful if we can maintain it by doing it in the right way. And that's what I really, really hope Kemi Badenoch's going to be able to set out.
What is right? Because I'm here to be educated. I think it's the biggest con trick. I think it's an absolute joke. 1% of carbon emissions, the rest of the world doing whatever. And you're smiling, but this country, most of our public services, most of what was any good in this country is creaking, and we're spending billions of pounds for what? Just explain to a complete Neanderthal. Why is Donald Trump not right? Drill, baby, drill. Why are we putting up wind farms that don't create enough electricity, and then we have to import it from other countries, and it costs? And by the way, all the people, I mean, you say this government got it wrong, but energy bills are going through the roof. It doesn't make sense at this moment, does it?
But energy bills are going through the roof for a variety of reasons, not all of which are connected to net zero. Let's not forget that 97% of time, the wholesale cost of energy is determined by gas, which is what net zero seeks to displace. So energy bills are driven by a number of reasons, including some policy costs I fully accept that are related to the effort to decarbonise. But The biggest cost of your energy bill is the wholesale price of energy, which is determined by gas, not by renewables. So I do think that's important. You raised the point quite rightly that this isn't just about what the UK is doing. We are only 1% of emissions, and it matters hugely what other countries do. But a large number of other countries are signed up to this target in one form or another.
But that's another, mate, with respect, that's another line. Like, we should reach a large number of countries are signed up to it. Decarbonise the UK. Explain to me, a taxpayer, right, why I should look at billions of pounds being spent on decarbonising the UK because some body, some climate group tells me when pensioners are freezing, veterans are on the streets, farmers are having their land grab, our NHS is on its backside, people can't get a doctor's appointment. That, I'm just being honest, and I love a debate, that for me is priority, not something that even your leader is now saying is not achievable. That's my issue here.
No, and I fully understand where you're coming from. And those things absolutely should be priorities. But we have to consider all of this. Not pursuing this has a cost as well. Climate change isn't just something that we can ignore and hope it goes away. There isn't, Kemi Badenoch's made a great thing about telling the truth. And I think that's really important because I think for far too long, politicians have shirked away on a whole range of issues, from levelling with people and being straight with them over it. The single best truth I can tell you about climate policy is there are no cost-free options. If you want to not pursue climate change and not pursue the costs that you highlight, what do you think the cost is going to be when we have massive migration, increased driven to this country because of climate instability overseas?
Right, well, hold on a second. Now you've done it again. But you've done it again. If we don't spend billions we haven't got, because we can't even service the interest on the trillions we owe. You've just said, if we don't invest in climate change, more migration is going to happen because people are going to come from other countries because we're all right and they're having a nightmare. In layman's terms, yes?
I think that's one of the big impacts.
Well, I'd shut you won't like this. You'll probably put the phone down. I'd shut the bloody borders, man. I would. This is exactly what's wrong with this country. I really would.
Fine, but you can't insulate yourself from every effect of this. What's the impact on food prices going to be if the food that we're importing from overseas, which we still import a lot, and I suspect
if you and the climate lobby are so, why don't we drill? Why don't we use our natural oil and gas reserves? Explain that to me.
I don't have a problem with us using our natural oil and gas reserves, but we have to live in the context that those oil and gas reserves in the North Sea are declining and have been. We haven't been a net exporter of energy in this country for over 20 years.
Even BP 2 weeks ago, who came out as green 5 years ago, one of the biggest providers, BP, said this is a joke, it's costing too much money, and they have reined back. Do you understand? And I understand there are arguments on all sides, but when you talk about nature restoration, resource security, all those sorts of things. I'm simply just talking from, without being disrespectful, from the everyday person's mindset here. You hear about Ed Miliband with his band of committees of all these these intelligent people. I'm talking about Beryl in Bury, who's worked for 50 years, has paid her stamp, is cold, can't see the doctor. I don't know how many times I have to tell academics this. She doesn't give a toss about net zero. She doesn't. She cares about surviving right now. And that, for me, means that we have to understand that. And we're not. And if you say to me, yes, those things do need... We haven't got the money, mate. And it's like anything. It's like I keep going on about the overseas budget, the foreign aid budget. Sorry, but you need to look after the things that need looking after. And if the argument to not make these changes is, oh, well, lots of migrants will come here, well, I'm sorry, I can't, and I probably sound unfair in all of this, but I think we need as a country to get our priorities right. And our priorities should be the people in this country rather than chasing some ideology that right now we can't afford it. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're right, maybe a large percentage of this country want this, but I don't believe they do.
I'm not disputing the fact, and you spoke about Beryl in Bury. Beryl in Bury cares about things like her energy bills and her food bills. Let's consider what happened to her energy bills 2 years ago when the gas price spiked because being overly reliant on gas means that it can be controlled by dictators like Putin, manipulating gas prices and selling them through the ceiling. Because we were reliant on gas, even with our own reserves, those bills went through the ceiling, and that had a real impact on her. Her food bills are going to go up if we have to import if we can't import food as easily from overseas.
Well, hold on a second. Why don't we stop land grabbing and get... our farmers are being screwed by the Labour government, and they're the ones that provide the food for us. So I'll tell you what, let's build some wind farms. Let's increase a tax on farmers, which is so just the most unbelievably stupid thing in the world. These people aren't minted. What?
By the way, I'm not disagreeing with that. I completely agree.
And let's force them out of business so we can build wind farms which don't create enough electricity, and then we'll import it. That argument doesn't wash at all, pal. That the way they're treating farmers who provide the very food that you just said is disgraceful. I just... Look, in an ideal world, we would make sure all our services were working. We'd make sure that ordinary everyday people who are struggling are okay, and we do right by the environment. It's a bit like the migration problem, in my humble opinion. Great Britain's always the one that's, let's behave morally, let's bring people in, yep, let's look after the environment, yep, let's do this, that. Is not the reality right now, John, that this country is skint? And when you're skint, or brassic, or whatever you want to say, or broke, your priorities have to change. And the people who pay, I think, should be at the front of the queue. I really do.
I don't dispute the fact that those issues are major problems. I really do want to pick you up on the final thing. I agree completely on farming. And I think you've served to underline in this. Let's not elide net zero with Ed Miliband's pursuit of net zero. They are not the same thing. And the whole thing that I really, really hope Kemi Badenoch can get onto with what she's trying to set out, which I think is absolutely the right approach. Let's come up with a plan. But let's come up with a plan that does it and takes into account what you've described. Yeah. Because that is not the same as the Labour government's approach. And I'm certainly not here to defend what Labour is doing at the moment. But you say we're skinned and we have got enormous challenges to our public finances. My counter to that is not to disagree with the premise of what you're saying, but to say that abandoning climate action, abandoning doing this stuff is going to make us more skinned. This is not a separate question. I'm not living in a moral land where you're living in a practical land. On a moral and a practical level, this stuff really, really matters. We've just got to make sure we do it in the right way.
John, it's really good to have you on, mate. Really, really interesting conversation, and very much appreciate your time. John Fletcher, Deputy Director of Conservative Environment Network. 21 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. If you want to be on, what do you make of that? Jez, most of the country want net zero. Fibber, who asked them? GB Energy, John Fletcher, another posh one who doesn't understand real life, says Helen. You'll have your opinions. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. 0344 499 1000 for your calls. Oh, goodness me, busy today. I need a Lemsip. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I need my chest rubbing, Joe. Back in a minute.
Across the UK, on on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
To Damo from Leeds, Middleton. JK, I love that you're giving John Fletcher common sense because he knows Jack. Love the show. Thank you, David. What happened to me then? David Thomas, nuclear all the way. Couldn't agree with you more. By the way, keep listening. Your chance in a tech. I'll tell you how you could be in chance of winning amazing Oasis tickets to Wembley this summer. Amazing gig it's going to be. In the meantime, let's go to Oxfordshire. It's posh there. Catherine, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
No, we're not all posh.
Oh, come on, woman. You're in Oxford. Of course you are.
No, I'm in Oxfordshire. I'm a farmer.
Oh, are you?
You know, and we're going to be peasants soon because I listened to that John Fletcher. What planet is he on? I mean, I think net zero is a scam, actually. You know, as I think with Starmer having met Fink from BlackRock again, I feel like BlackRock are going to buy the country, buy all our land when we all die, if we don't die before 2026. And apparently Bill Gates is looking into giving the cattle in the cattle feed something that eliminates some of the methane that comes out in their dung. Have you?
Right, listen, I'm not. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not into massive conspiracy theories. What I'm into, from a farming perspective, is this. What's it like working all your life on a farm to pass down, to do the right thing? You take less than 1% of the income. It's not about being multi-millionaires. And you've got a government now in power who looked you in the face and said they protect the farmers, who are screwing you. And in my mind, it's nothing more than a land grab so they can build their wind farms. What's it like knowing that that's over you, hanging over you now?
I tell you what, I think everyone's missing the point in that actually it's our passion. It's not a job. We've done it because we love it.
Yes.
Somebody's left it to our generation, the previous. And when I just heard that budget, back whenever it was, and I saw these smug, arrogant, woke, liberal elite who haven't got a clue about living a rural life, I think they're just going to decimate the landscape. And you know, there is a link. If people are completely not into the land animals, they will pay for it eventually, you know. And also about all this solar panels and pylons, what about the health if you're living near a pylon? I mean, you know, who talks about that because of the magnetic field? I'm just sick of the whole thing.
It doesn't make any sense on so many levels to me. It doesn't make any sense to grab land to build wind farms, which do not. And we even the net zero weirdos, as I call them, even they freely admit that there won't be enough electricity created. So we'll have to import it. So your bills won't go down, they'll go up. And listen, I could have the net zero debate with anybody. I had it with John Fletcher. I don't believe in this moment in time, in the way this country, the state this country is in, right? There are more important priorities, and whether that's old people, whether it's farmers, whether it's veterans, whether it's the NHS, whatever it is, there's got to be more important things at this moment than spending billions that we can't afford on some dream that even the Tories today have woken up and gone, oh, that's not going to work. Thank you to Catherine in Oxfordshire. We'll head north. Lincolnshire. Graham, you're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hello, yeah. Can I talk about net zero and CO2 again?
No, you can't. Of course you can. You can talk about whatever you want, man.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to suffer it anyway, whether you like it or not. We've been told for 40 or 50 years that CO2 is going to cause us all to burn to a crisp and it's a disaster, a calamity. So I thought, I need to understand this. And so I read about it in detail. I'm not an expert, but, you know, I think I got to the bottom of it, got the truth of it. And that's this. CO2 is irrelevant to climate. It's just irrelevant. But there's a lot to go into there, but let's leave it at that for the moment. But what it is very important about, it's vital to life. And it's doing a fantastic job. There's a terrific good news story, which never gets told about CO2, and that is it's actually greening the planet.
Hold on a second. I am... don't shake your head, Ryan. It's fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. I'm obviously, right, slightly confused here because I live in a world where all these people, a weirdo, say we're burning the planet and it's all going to blow up, and whilst taking their private jets to Baku with 400 officials to sit on their asses and talk about. But my bottom line is, I remember 1976, the hottest summer ever. I was 11. They said the world was about to burn. I remember the coldest winters. What I'm trying to say is this. I just genuinely think we have bigger priorities. So you're now telling me that actually the facts that CO2 emissions aren't bad, that's all rubbish as well. So you're going against every scientific thing that I've ever been told now, right? Yeah?
I'm sorry, not every scientific thing you've ever been told. There are thousands of scientists out there, very eminent scientists.
Yeah.
Who I read their work and I read other people's work. There's a very strong body of opinion to say that CO2 is really very good news and we need more of it. You know, to be very radical about this, rather than saying to people reduce your carbon footprint, I think we should be saying increase your carbon footprint.
I don't even know. This is how stupid I am. And one of my kids will be listening to this and be laughing. I don't even know what that means. That this whole bloody carbon footprint thing. I mean, I understand people are going to go, oh, you're just an idiot. I just think this country needs to talk about priorities. And right now, Graham, I think our priorities are a little bit more important than chasing a billions and billions of pound finance dream that is going to bankrupt this country even more than it is right now. And there is no proof that your bills will come down. And there is no proof that people won't lose their jobs. It's like this GB Energy. Have you heard about GB Energy? I mean,
let me pick you up.
There's a bloke called Helmet on 200, I don't know what his name is, on about Jurgen, I think it is, 200 grand, he's got no office. What is GB Energy? It's rubbish.
But if I may say to you, please, you've accepted the argument that CO2 is a problem. It isn't. It really isn't a problem.
All right, well, I'll take your word for it. Eminent scientist Graham in Lincolnshire. I mean it. I'll take you. I think the whole climate thing's, honestly, I think it's a giant con trick. Do you think that's bad, or do you think that's true?
No, I think it is a con trick. Unfortunately, it's a great shame, but it is a con trick. There's nothing wrong with the climate. We have a pollution problem in the world, and we have a habitat problem in the world, but there's no climate problem.
It's great to have you on, mate. Thank you very much indeed, Graham in Lincolnshire. This is Talk Drive. It's 12 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Right, as I said to you, here's a chance. I guess it's Mike Graham again, isn't it? The voiceover man. This is how you could get a chance to win some amazing Oasis tickets at Wembley this summer. Have a listen.
How do you fancy winning tickets to the hottest gig of the century? Here at Talk, we're giving you the chance to bag yourself a pair of tickets to Oasis at Wembley this summer. Plus, we're giving away a whopping 10 grand and putting you up for the weekend in a London hotel. All you need to do is text the word prize to 83338 and you're in the draw. Alternatively, you can enter by post. Once again, all you need to do is text the word prize to 83338 or you can enter by post. Good luck.
18 plus UK excluding Northern Ireland. Enter by text for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on the 7th of April 2025. Or post your name and number to Oasis Competition, PO Box 3190. Colchester CO2 8GP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of April 2025. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion.
I'm very worried that Donald Trump doesn't really, I think, understand who Putin really is. Putin is an old KGB man who knows how to negotiate. He knows Trump's in a hurry, because Trump said, I'm going to get this done in double quick time. So when someone's in a hurry, the Russians always wait to the last moment and stick in conditions. And then you argue about the conditions, and then they stick in a few more. And the reality for him is that I just looked at a piece of work from somebody who said in previous negotiations, the readout in translation is that Putin is being rude about Trump in Russian.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Friends, 7 minutes to 6. Push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Last Wednesday, I said to Sam Ellard, our sports commentator, that I believe that Liverpool would be knocked out of the Champions League and they would lose the Carabao Cup on Sunday to Newcastle. He said, I don't know what I'm talking about. Since when? He's been nowhere to be seen. Yesterday, he threw a sickie. Today, another, but it's his loss and not ours. Our gain is that we've got a man who is as tall as Dan Burn from Newcastle. Max Scott, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'7", Jeremy.
I'm glad you're sitting. You're taller sitting down than I am standing up.
Well, you know, I've been blessed with a lot of things and height is one of them.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you on air what my answer to that is, but there we go. Let's talk about, this is really interesting, because I dubbed Ryan going on about Watford, which is irrelevant. I'm a Hammers fan. Very close links to Newcastle. Sunday was fantastic. You, my friend, are a Nottingham Forest fan. What a season you are having.
Absolutely incredible, Jeremy. And you know what I love about it?
Did you see it coming in any which way?
No, no one saw it coming.
No.
They're a liar if they told you saw it coming.
Yeah.
But what is so refreshing about it is you've got not only a club with such history and heritage like Forest, back-to-back European Cup winners, but they're sort of disrupting the procession of the top six.
And they don't look like they're going anywhere.
No, not a chance. No, we're 7 points clear in the Champions League places.
Really interesting.
And also not trying to copy Pep Guardiola. You look at like Southampton and their measly season, Burnley last season, somehow Vincent Kompany managed to rob a job at Bayern Munich.
How did that happen?
They're all trying to play Pep Guardiola's style of football. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
What do? Have your possession, we'll sit back, defend better than you and score more goals than you, see you later.
And what was he was laughed out of Spurs, wasn't he? Nuno Espirito Santo doing a fantastic manager of the season by me. But let's talk about another manager of the season. Sunday, of course, Newcastle and Dan Burn, the same size as you, the boy from Blythe, as Shearer tweeted. He's from Blythe, for Christ's sake. Amazing header. What a week. He didn't have one drink on Sunday night because he was called up to the England squad, broke into the England squad. There was an interview today with Dan Burn, not shy at all, saying, I've been brought in, I do as much off the pitch as on the pitch. Absolute. What a week for that kid. But £7 million, what a buy that was by Eddie Howe.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely had worse weeks. And what's so refreshing about Dan Burn is, you know, just what a great lad he is. No one can watch Dan Burn and not think this is someone I want to represent my country.
Yeah.
Because he might not be the most talented, but he doesn't need to be. He's a defender. He's big. He's tough. He clearly comes up clutch in big moments, as he's shown at Wembley. And it was lovely to hear him talk about how he didn't have a drink. Why? Because this means so much to him. And that's what we want for our national team.
He said,
we want
actually,
players
Tuchel rang him at 10 o'clock at night and said, why have you answered your phone? You should have been asleep. Listen, I wish him that they love him up there, as they do also Eddie Howe, who today we've heard has got the freedom of the city in Newcastle, which is something else.
As you'd expect. I mean,
do you know what that means, by the way, freedom of the city? It means you can graze your sheep on the centre of the city where there's grass and you can get married in the cathedral.
Well, he better buy some sheep then if he's not already got any.
Good manager, the next England manager?
Well, you would think so. And I think particularly having now won something for a club that haven't won anything in 70 years. They did win this sort of Mickey Mouse European Cup in 1969, back when sort of man had first walked on the moon. That is a massive achievement to do that for a club with such pressure. You know, we have lots of ex-Newcastle managers coming on TalkSport telling us just the sort of the sheer pressure.
Listen, I'm a West Ham fan, but my best friend, all of my friends, but my best friend lives in Newcastle, and I'm telling you, I've said it every single time, there is nothing like St James's Park on a Saturday afternoon. It's a religion in that city. It's such a religion. You actually, when they lose, the city is depressed on a Monday. It means so much to so many people. The other story that interests me today was Mauricio Pochettino, who's the new United States of a USA coach for the World Cup, says, one day I want to return to Spurs. I fear, because I think Postecoglou will go in the summer, if not before, it will be too soon for him. So because he's got the World Cup with America.
Yeah, look, you know, our sort of sources at TalkSport tell us that Daniel Levy and the top brass at Spurs are already writing up a list of replacements for Ange Postecoglou. We think that it's Europa League or bust. But of course, it would be too early for Pochettino. He's on a lucrative contract in the USA. He's going to be the manager of a host nation. Funnily enough, he's spoken about the pressure he feels from Donald Trump to actually win it, which, of course, they're not going to do. But I do think there's unfinished business from Pochettino. I think it was another example of a ridiculous decision made by Tottenham Hotspur to sack a man who'd just taken them to the final of a Champions League.
Look what they did. What did they do with Roberto Di Matteo? He won the Champions League for them. They got rid of him about 11 weeks later.
Yeah. I mean, look, London clubs are known for that, high expectations, but Spurs prove that they don't win anything.
No.
And to go so close with such a talented manager, I think they made a massive mistake there. But it could be that the stars align in a few years. Wouldn't be surprised to see it at all. Because the Premier League's the best place to be.
What do you think Spurs manager? I'll tell you who I think's the manager. The next big man is the man at Bournemouth.
Yeah, Antonio Iraola. I lived in Bournemouth for 7 years. Great club. Lovely fans, but I mean, there's an 11,000-seat stadium, and whilst the infrastructure isn't there, I don't think for them to consistently compete at European level. Whereas you look at Spurs, they've got the best stadium in Europe. Have you ever been there? It's
where
the new Spurs stadium.
No, it's extraordinary though.
It's incredible. And so I think if they can prize them away with sort of a healthy exit budget, then Spurs will be onto a good one there.
Good man. Finally, very quickly, Gold Cup winner. I know the way you're thinking. By the way, this horse won the Gold Cup last week, and Mrs. Carl backed it. And I spent weeks looking at the form. I'm into all that. And she backed it because she said, I know the way you're thinking all the time, Jez. Will we skip in the Grand National? Grand National fan?
Yeah, I've been actually. Yeah, I've been a couple of times when I was a teenager.
Give you a tip for next year. Mr. Vango in 2026 will win the the Grand National.
I'll write that one down.
But I don't, Mr. Vango, but I don't know this year. But it won't be the Gold Cup favourite. Can I just say you're marvellous and much better than Sam Ellard.
Thank you very
Forest
much.
will qualify for the Champions League?
Without a doubt.
Look at that.
It's in our blood.
Watford will fail to make the promotional playoffs.
Oh, come on. Obviously.
West Ham will avoid relegation. I could manage them to avoid relegation. Graham Potter, carry on. Max Scott, thank you very much indeed. TalkSport presenter, the station for all your sport. We're heading to the news at 6 if you want to be on. 0344 499 1000. Your text to 87222. We, my friends, will do the news at 6. It's next on Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back to some breaking news on Talk. This just in from the Kremlin. Vladimir Putin has agreed to halt strikes on Ukraine's energy targets for 30 days, they say, after that phone call with President Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin agreeing to halt strikes on Ukraine's energy targets for 30 days. Not the country in its entirety, but energy targets. We will bring you more on that breaking news story right here on the Home of Common Sense and Free Speech Talk. If you want to be on the next hour, 0344 499 1000, text to 8722. So much to talk about. You might want to talk about Labour's welfare cuts. They're going to trim off the fat and say to all those people who are taking advantage, listen, we want to pay the people who matter, the people who are disabled, the people who are mentally ill. We're not going to be conned by you lot. But the big thing today is, have they gone far enough? Oh, Kemi's been jumping up and down. This is a completely impossible target, net zero by 2050. I mean, I might have supported it, but I've changed my mind. This is my first major policy announcement. None of that rubbish. I'm not doing it. Included in that is a huge debate we've been having about Motability. Seems that you can drive a Lotus or a Ferrari or even a BMW if you're on Motability allowance. By the way, before you get your knickers in a twist, myself, this station and anybody with a brain cell fully supports a system that supports people who cannot help themselves. What it's talking about is doing something about the people who either come into this country and get everything laid out for them, or people in this country who are scammers, which mean the real people are suffering. That's what we want to talk about. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. He's been ignoring me. He hasn't. He's been busy. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK and MP for Boston and Skegness. A very good evening.
Very good evening to you, Jeremy. Just another day in paradise. Well, at least it's been sunny, but the reality is that it was a pretty turgid hour and a bit listening to Liz Kendall and her waffle about welfare reform today. I have to say, for all of the sort of the pre-hype and the nonsense that's been talked about in the lead up to it, frankly, it was a pretty damp squib.
It's really interesting, and I will put this to you not just as a mate, but as a doing the programme, and I'll be straight with you. Here's my take. Patently, there are many things in this country that don't work. And there are lots of systems that have so many loopholes that, in my humble opinion, too many people, be they illegal migrants or lazy dossers, are taking advantage of. And we have been too scared in this country to stand up and say, do you know what? Why would you be able to come into this country and have paid nothing into a system and take advantage, to the detriment of people, by the way, who have paid in, who can't get anywhere near the front of the queue? Or indeed, why are we wiping the backside of a generation of people who go, oh, I'm too anxious to work? The minute you say that, though, as a politician or a broadcaster, and I get this, and this is what I think politicians need to get across to people, is the genuine people, Richard, are terrified. There's no doubt in my mind Liz Kendall's sentiment to a degree is right. Didn't go far enough. The Tories have done absolutely nothing about this for 14 years, and it's very easy now for them to say, well, COVID. I'm sick and tired of hearing about COVID. People have been ripping off this system which doesn't work for years and years. Nigel this morning on with Julia saying, we've been talking about this since 2015.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all want a world-leading benefit system that looks after the genuinely disabled, the genuinely sick, the genuinely vulnerable, and those genuinely who are out of work looking for work. But reform is the party of the workers and the strivers, not the shirkers and the skivers. And I regret to say that the reality is there are many people who are taking the mickey with regards to the benefit system because it's become way too easy to do so. Let me give you a small example. There are sort of two main components to the benefit system. One is universal credit, and the other one is the personal independence payments. And you touched on an element of that Motability. Within personal independence payment, only 5% of assessments, 5%, that's 1 in 20, are face-to-face. 80% are online. And
with an illness or a disability or anything online, yeah?
Online. And so it's way too easy for those of a frankly a disposition that they can't be asked to get out of bed in the morning, to say, well, I'll either fill in the paperwork or I'll do an online thing. You can go on YouTube and you can get videos that teach you the words to use and how to fill out the forms in order to guarantee you the full whack of personal independence payment. Now, obviously, I don't recommend that.
Sorry. I know I come from a different planet and I'm much younger than you, Tice man. Sorry. You can go online and you can learn how to
con... You've heard of the internet?
Don't start, dear. And you can con the system.
Well, no, you get taught how to con the system.
That's what I mean. Jesus.
Yes. I can't. And so don't be surprised if actually the numbers have been soaring in recent years. And I'm sorry, but we've just got to be honest about this. The vast increase recently has been those claiming that they've got mental health issues. Now, serious mental health as an illness is horrific.
Yep.
And it's sadly the term has been hijacked by those who can't be bothered to get up and go to work. And look, the best cure to normal mental health issues is a bit of resilience, get busy, get up, get out, and get on and go to work.
I've never said this before. I'm going to say it now, which will cause Ryan to fall off his chair. In my other life, before I joined Talk many years ago, I did a television programme, and I'm still recovering from a day about 5. There was a particular story, I'm not going into any detail, but there was a woman who was central to the story, and she wasn't on the stage, she was in the audience. And when I asked the production team why she wasn't, I was told that she'd said, I have to stay in the audience and not be seen to walk on the stage because I'll lose my disability benefit. And that is genuine. And you're shaking, but you know I'm telling the truth. And what it does for me is I understand the fear of the genuine people. I mean, we had a call yesterday, Richard. I would share this with you. I wish I could play it, but it was a lady called Samantha. She worked for nigh on 40 years as an A&E trauma nurse, saving people's lives. She was beaten up twice. The second time, actually, if we got that clip, I'd love to. Can I just play this, Richard? Because this and now, right, all of that has nowhere to go. Just have a listen. It's about 30 seconds. Play it, Ames.
Worked in the NHS for 39 years. I feel as if I'm a tombola on this. I had to give it up last year after being assaulted for the second time. Not entitled to any benefits at all. Retired, lived on my pension. Pensions ran out. Obviously, I get a pension every month. I'm applying for jobs. Nobody wants me. I can't get a job washing pots. I can't work in Morrison's. I've had to go to job seekers. They can't help me. Nobody wants me.
And there, encapsulated in that call, is a person who's given 40 years and cannot get a bleeding handout or help at all, despite being beaten up twice whilst making sure we're all safe and healthy in hospital. That's when I talk about priorities, and people say you bang on every day. But if she came in on a boat, I don't care about what the lefties will say to this. She'd be in a 4-star hotel. Where's the motivation for people left, Richard, in this country to play the game by its rules and go to work? And do you know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, you're right, but the motivation should be how we were all brought up, which is it's the morally correct thing to do. That's the real motivation, and it shouldn't be possible to earn more on a take-home at the end of each week, if you are of working age and if you are not genuinely disabled, then the standard assumption should be that if you can work, you should work. Now, there are many people who have some form of disability, who do work, who want to work, and contribute fantastically. And we should enhance that and support that in every way possible. But I think what people are tired of is we hear all those warm words and waffle, and we had a bit more of it from Liz Kendall, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions today. But actually, having told everybody they were going to make huge savings in the welfare bill, it was pretty limited. I mean, just to give you an idea, the bill is forecast over the next 5 years to increase by £27 billion from 48 billion to about 75 billion pounds. Bless you. And so that is a huge increase of approaching 60%. They're only talking about saving about 7% a year. I mean, these are pretty modest sums. She's looking at saving within 5 years' time she wants to save $5 billion a year. It doesn't touch the sides of the gravity of the situation.
Window dressing.
And, you know, we just realised that. And by the way, she reaffirmed within that many people who, if someone is of a certain level of condition, then of seriousness of condition, then they would never have to have another assessment ever again in their life. So for someone of a very serious condition, you can understand that you don't want an annual assessment. But equally, you can also understand that guess what the Mickey takers are going to do? They're going to online try and con the system to say they've got that very serious condition, so they never get reassessed ever.
It doesn't. All of that stuff sends me through the roof. And as I started by saying to you, the sentiment might be great. It hasn't gone far enough. It is, as you said, not even touching the sides. And I think we need to, as a society, be able to have these conversations. That's what I like about talk. That's what I like about reform. Because at the end of the day, it's not... I mean, honestly... As usual on this show, yesterday I was told that Shakespeare's a sexist, homophobic, racist, white supremacist. We need to be able to say, listen, there are too many people coming here who don't pay in. Yes, we can be moral, but we need to be realistic. Yes, we should look after people who can't help themselves, but we should be brave enough in 2025 to stand up with the situation that we find ourselves in as a country and say, we can't have the Mickey taken forever. We're skint. We can't even afford to finance the interest on the debt of the money we've borrowed. That's the reality, Richard, isn't it?
So, look, the reality is, just as you said, but also, I think that what was announced today will not save any money at all.
No.
I think that actually it will lead to more people unfairly abusing the system. I think the costs will go up, not down. And you heard it from the Labour benches, which were absolutely ram-packed with all the backbenchers, most of whom stood up and bleated that this was, even to try and reduce the bill by motivating people back into work, even to try that was basically was wrong. No suggestion that anybody might be swinging the lead when we all know that is the case, loud and clear. So these people, I'm afraid, just living in cloud cuckoo land, absolute cloud cuckoo land.
I had a couple of Tories on earlier who said when we tried to do anything, they used to say you're going to kill people. Can I bring you on to a moment whereby, I don't want to disrespect you, Richard Tice, but I fear for the whole reform movement after today, because Kemi Badenoch has stood up and said that Britain's key climate target of achieving net zero by 2050 is, and I quote, an abstract concept that should be abandoned forthwith. The Tories have finally realised that net zero, in the words of a Miss Oakeshott earlier on the show, is one big bleeding con job. Or con trick were her words. Nigel comes straight on to Julia and says, hold on a minute, it's a bit rich. You know, we've been saying that, he's mentioned you. Me and the Tice man have been mentioning this for 10 years now. The Tories have done it. Now, is this an example of Kemi Badenoch, you know, grasping the nettle, things have changed, this is it? Or is this a case of, or is it rather proof the Tories have nothing of their own to say and that actually the world needs to understand that this is ludicrous and a waste of money?
Well, let's be clear. If reform didn't exist, there's no way that Kemi Badenoch would have made that announcement today. The truth is that most of the Tories still believe in net stupid zero. She, on numerous occasions, has voted for it. And she's doing this because she and her party are panicking. They're about to be driven into oblivion by Reform, who's ahead of them in all of the polls by some margin now. And they realise that our policy of scrapping net stupid zero is gaining significant support up and down the country.
I've just been told by a guy, so you can tell, who's a concern. I'm going to give you, no, don't give it, I'm going to read it. His name was John Flesher, Deputy Director of Conservative Environment Network. I had a right old Barney with him. He said, he almost said, you don't know what you're doing, mate. He said, a majority of people, you will not find a poll that doesn't say a majority of people want net zero.
Well, equally, when you say to people, do you care about the British environment? Of course, we all care about the British environment and countryside, and we don't want them blighted by thousands of pylons to carry electricity for net zero. If you say to people, oh, by the way, your bills are going to go up another 900 quid over the next 4 years because of net stupid zero, all of a sudden, any support for it disappears down the plug hole. gone, along with that contributor who's completely out of touch with the concerns of the British people. We're winning the war on this. It's pretty brutal, and but we're making great progress. The question I leave with your listeners and viewers is, given that Kemi Badenoch has voted for this on multiple occasions, given that this policy was imposed on the nation, this impoverishment, this financial lunacy imposed on the nation by the Tories, would you actually trust the Tories to reverse it? Why would you trust people who imposed this ludicrous policy on a nation? I think what you should say is actually it's their fault. They're the ones who started it, destroying jobs and industries. Let's forget about them. Let's focus on the people who've had a consistent, clear message on this, who've taken a load of flack. And guess what? Turns out we're right. The bills are only going to be going up. The cost of living is only going to be going up because of net stupid zero.
I love the way you call it stupid. There's three more things. One thing you won't want to talk about, and two, you'll be happy to. But the thing you don't want to talk about is not what you think you want to talk about, because I respect you as a friend. Repairing the potholes. This is what I want to know. How would reform find it's going to cost £17 billion, for Christ's sake, to deal with the pothole problem in this country? And we've got Liz Kendall saying, oh, I'm going to change the benefit system. She's only going to create 5. Where do we get £17 billion from? From your bank account, I suspect. But how are you going to sort this out?
Well, you don't need 17 billion. That's a bloated, ludicrous civil service estimate. If it's done properly and sensibly, on a cost-effective basis by people who know what they're doing and negotiate good deals, it'd be a fraction of that. If you use the latest modern technology and machines, then it can all be done for a fraction of that. So yeah, I just think that's obviously an absurd number. But there is a pothole crisis. There's a bin crisis. That's why we've got local elections coming up. That's why we think we're going to do extremely well, and we are standing in, I think, every single seat, give or take, across the country where we're allowed to have elections, where they haven't been cancelled by the Tory and the Labour Party. So yeah, we're looking forward to that, and that will then be within our remit. And if we win some councils, then we can show what should be done and how you can spend money properly and sensibly.
You know that Labour MP that punched somebody in the chops and lost his job, Mike Amesbury? Have you got a candidate lined up yet? You fight? Is it all out in that seat? Frodsham and what is it? I can't remember. Somewhere up north.
Yes, it's Runcorn and Helsby. So look, this is the 16th safest Labour seat.
Ooh.
So it's a tough one, but we'll be giving it a serious, good shot. We'll be announcing our candidate very soon. Patience is a virtue, even for you, Jeremy.
Wow.
And we will be working incredibly hard. And who knows? Let's see what happens on the day. But we think that now the writ has been moved, we think it'll be, give or take, May the 1st.
Millions to have annual weigh-ins on the NHS. I have to be really careful on this. It's quite a big subject. See what I did there? What's your view on this? I'd say stop eating so much. I could be missing the point. Go on.
I think the NHS has got more important things to do. I'm sorry, can we just focus on the front line of actually clearing the corridors, clearing the A&E, clearing the wards, making a greater relationship between healthcare and social care to get the waiting list down. I think that's the important thing that people want, and still free at the point of delivery before anybody starts throwing things at the radio or the TV. But actually, we should be using the independent sector where there's loads of capacity, and there could be lots more capacity, and much more efficient at doing standard operations, as Wes Streeting promised during the election, but gone rather silent on that ever since. I mean, they're quite good at copying reform policies at the moment. I mean, they copied us on defence spending, slashing foreign aid, cutting government waste. So they might as well copy us on healthcare.
The problem with an obesity discussion and I've had it for years. People will say it's very unfortunate. I would say it's a drain on the NHS because of diabetes and everything. But I'm sorry, and you will never convince me. You know, there's people that go, "Oh, he were born big boned." No, he wasn't. He was a baby. Don't tell me that it did stop eating. There isn't anybody that's come on and does my head in. Seriously, can't have it now. There's a subject you don't want me to ask you about, and you think it's something but I'm going to shock you. How is it for you now, as a Liverpool fan,
Is that the time? Goodness me! I think I
No,
may
come
have to
on.
go.
I want you to give. You thought I was going to ask you about something else. I want you to give credit from this side of the house to Newcastle, who battered you on Sunday.
You promised me an invitation, and I didn't get it in the post or by email. So I think you've let me down, actually. Mind you, so look, I guess Newcastle haven't won for is it almost 60 years?
Who are you more upset with, Mo Salah or Ben Habib? Come on, let's cut to the chase, man. Come on.
You for not getting me an invitation to Wembley, but there we are.
Oh, all right.
Look,
then.
we're going to win the Premier League, which is.
But interestingly, 5 days ago, you were going to win the Champions League, the Carabao Cup, and the Premier League. I think you're going to bottle the Premier League and be caught on the line. I think it's all over, man. Can you do me a favour, though? Can you do me a favour as a Reform MP? Can you please say congratulations to the fantastic Newcastle United?
They did great. I'm delighted for them, and thanks for the invitation.
God bless, mate. You'll get the invite to the St James's Park box now. Richard, thank you. Yeah, you will. Thank you. A Liverpool fan who had to swallow a bitter pill on Sunday. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform, of course, and MP for Boston and Skegness. This, my friends, is Talk Drive.
A chairman of a company supposedly based in Aberdeen, who himself is based in Manchester, where the video was filmed in London. The whole thing's farcical. Nobody knows what GB Energy actually is. It isn't great, it isn't British, and it's not going to produce any energy. It's why we voted against it in the House of Commons. It's going to cost £8 billion at a time when we're scrabbling to find the money to build the tanks, the drones, and get more soldiers, sailors and airmen into the place that we need to become more secure as a country. And it's going to do nothing to improve our energy security or drive down bills.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome Back, I wish you could hear what goes on. Maybe one day we'll push the wrong button and you will, and we'll all be fired. Oh, there you go. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Kevin O'Sullivan is here from 7 o'clock with his political asylum. It will be amazing. It's always amazing. It says here it's the most amazing show in the world, which is amazing. Petrie Hoskins is here from 10 o'clock. She's a dish. Do you see what I did there, right? And, of course, the only reason you should wake up every morning, Mimet's here, 6 o'clock. I don't know why I'm doing that accent. Mike Graham back with Morning Glory. Hello to Sally on the Isle of Lewis. Now, I just would like somebody to tell me where the Isle of Lewis is. I know where the Isle of Wight is. She said, I'm loving today's show, Jez. Instead of taxing our farmers, our government should be subsidising them. Part of being eco-friendly and lowering carbon footprints is being self-sufficient as a country. Producing our own food is essential. Sally, of course I know where the Isle of Lewis is. It's in Scotland. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you, Ryan, for phoning the show. Sam, guess why potholes are getting worse? Because electric cars weigh so much more than combustion engine cars that they cause more potholes and make existing ones worse. Yet this bloody government still want more electric cars. This government is ridiculous, says Sam in Ascot. Here's the thing about electric cars, right? This is... nobody wants to buy them. You can tell me till you're blue in the face. Oh, you're going to go... Nobody wants them. Nobody wants a boiler that costs all that money and is rubbish, and nobody... They don't. Don't listen... It's a lie. It's a broken system, says Steve from Hull. What is? You're heating? Oh, no. People are offered more hours but stay below 16 as they will lose benefits and less money. Yes, we have created a benefit system in this country, ladies and gentlemen, where very soon it will make more sense not to bleed and work. How is that right? It can't be right. Hello to M. Just as a guy used to... This is going to wind me up. Why did you put this on here? There's a guy used to live near me in Westminster. He has 8 kids, I can't judge, never worked, now I can, said he had a bad back, not too bad to create 8 kids, got a new Mobility 7-seater van every year, now I'm getting wound up, went on a 1-month holiday every year, I'm getting wound up now, and it was raking it in, made me so mad, especially because he hardly spoke any English and seemed entitled to everything. Great show. See, I don't care, people will go, oh, that's not right to say that. Yes, it is. So she's working and he's having his backside wiped by my country. What's wrong with this place? 0344 499 1000. You might have heard, it's 6:30, you might have heard the news at 4 o'clock that Donald Trump was having a conversation with Vladimir Putin. It went on 3.5 hours. One wonders how much talking Putin did. Probably not very much, because Donald Trump speaks more than me. We're delighted to get a response to this now. Red Rebel Chris Parry, former NATO and Royal Navy commander, top man as well. 6:30. How are you, Christoph?
Yeah, good evening. How are you?
You got the hunting jacket on. You've been out shooting something. Look at that. You're looking very smart, aren't you? Oh, no.
I like practicing, yeah.
Very good. Vladimir Putin, we've just heard, breaking news, has agreed to halt strikes on Ukraine's energy targets. Just its energy targets, Chris, for 30 days. The Kremlin confirms after that call with the Donald. Fresh Ukraine peace talks will also begin in the Middle East immediately, the White House confirmed. After the call, the White House said the leaders agreed the movement to peace will begin with an energy and infrastructure ceasefire. The Kremlin confirmed that the two presidents had a frank exchange of opinions but agreed to stay in touch. Many people have criticised Donald Trump and said, you know, he's become Putin's poodle. He sold Ukraine down the river. Is he making progress? What's your view on this, Chris?
Well, you've actually got the two heads of state talking with each other. That was something that was impossible, I think, last year. So that's happening. We've also got an outline agreement that Iran will never have the ability to destroy Israel, which means it won't get a nuclear capability, which is quite significant in the small print. And the fact that they're talking about resolving the Ukraine crisis between them, I think, is a positive. As you say, you know, Putin says he won't attack energy and infrastructure in Ukraine. In return, the Ukrainians have said they won't attack with long-range missiles and drones into Russia. So gradually, we're going down the escalation ladder and looking towards some sort of peaceful resolution here.
Does it then speak well of what Donald Trump is doing? Or what is your take on the fact that people say, hold on a second, Putin's a nightmare, he's a complete and utter disgrace who invaded a sovereign country and in the end could potentially get land back. Some will say they were Russian people, they'll talk about what happened after the First and Second War. I get that. does allowing him even to come to the negotiating table send a message that it's okay to invade other countries and you'll get away with it? Because that's what a lot of people feel, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite interesting. I've been telling people that I've advised recently that there are two principles at stake in the world now that President Trump is in the White House. One is that Lord Palmerston's rules apply, and he said there are no permanent friends or allies, there are no permanent enemies, countries have permanent interests, and that's what they should follow. There's also a thing called the Melian Dialogue from the Peloponnesian War. Athens basically said to a small city called Milos, look, you've got to take sides between us and Sparta. And Milos said, well, actually, we'd like to be neutral. And the Athenians said, no. The strong do what they can, the weak do what they must. And I'm afraid to say we're in a Palmerstonian and Melian world now, and that includes what the United States thinks. And frankly, the United States wants the Ukrainian crisis over with. It's costing them a lot of money and attention. They want a deal in the Middle East. And at the moment, Ukraine's looking a bit like Finland in 1939. It's going to have to give away land. It's going to have some sort of spurious neutrality. And we've got to separate out the defense of the European part of NATO from that. It's the linkage of the two that has caused problems for our Prime Minister, who's playing at soldiers a bit, and also President Macron. The last thing we want, Jeremy, is any sort of troops in Ukraine over this crisis.
Also today, Israel continuing strikes across Gaza. This sort of struck me last night. The Hamas-run ministry says more than 400 people killed. I thought, so that ceasefire's gone to nowhere then, has it? The Israeli-Hamas one?
Yeah, well, if you don't fulfill the terms of the ceasefire, which is, Hamas doesn't get to come back in to do military stuff again, and you release the hostages, then the ceasefire's over. Israel was quite explicit. If you don't fulfill the terms of the ceasefire, we'll come back full strength and attack you. I'm afraid to say, if you don't actually, if you sign up and then don't actually fulfill these agreements, then I'm afraid Israel is not the country to play with.
How does that situation ever resolve it then? We're talking, about how there's a breakthrough today between Putin and Trump, and there's a sort of 30-day ceasefire agreed about infrastructure and sort of, sort of plants to do with the military side of things. But, I mean, there was all that talk about Hamas and the Israelis, and there were cynics, but there were people who thought this is the beginning of the right thing. And that's been, excuse the pun, blown aside. Where does that end? I mean, I don't understand. You're a military man. Let's flatten. Let's get rid. Absolutely. Let's make Hamas, the terrorist organisation, extinct. How can we do that when they attach themselves underground to people and humans and innocent people? Then, if you're going to do that, you're going to kill innocent people. But actually, however many months down the line, they haven't. How do you kill This is my question to you. Actually, how do you kill an ideology?
You invade its territory and you extirpate the people who are proponents of that ideology. It worked against Nazi Germany. It worked against imperialistic and militaristic Japan. You have to go right in there. You have to eradicate its base and stop them operating. It's as simple as that.
Did you always feel, even when they signed this ceasefire, that was actually the only way to deal with this in the end?
That's what you and I talked about, Jeremy, actually. If you look at what President Putin would do in this situation, you see what he did in Grozny and Chechnya. He just flattened the place. And, he'd have no
What would you say to the people who say that's all well and good, Chris Parry, but what about the innocent Gazans? What would you say about the 40,000 plus people who have lost their lives? How would you justify that from a military point of view to a social, in terms of the general public? What would you say?
I would say that if you start a war, you don't actually get to decide how that war ends. We wouldn't have asked this question when we were bombing Germany and firebombing Japanese cities in World War II.
Nope.
War is hell. You and I know this, Jeremy. The fact of life is, if you as a civilian population can't get rid of what is causing the problem in your midst, then I'm afraid to say, if you get in the way, war is bad. It's indiscriminate in terms of who gets damaged. I mean, can you imagine if we had a load of terrorists hiding in the underground? Don't you think that 8 million people in London would seal up those tunnels and prevent those terrorists from coming up again.
Mate, I completely agree. I just wanted to hear it from your point of view. I mean, I've been very vocal about this. I don't understand why one would negotiate with terrorists anyway. Maybe I come from a different world, but you feel like the Hamas thing. I still feel that they're getting far more credence for what was essentially the most disgusting and vile act, and I feel like even bringing them somehow, I don't want to see the suffering in Gaza any more than you do, but bringing them to the table is to me not the answer, because I believe they're laughing at the Israelis.
Jeremy, if you look at the all-party parliamentary report that came out today on what happened on 7th of October, you will see why the Israelis have been really working out the trauma at national scale in this war. There is absolutely no way that you and I could walk away from that. And I can see why the Israelis can't either. The fact of life is Hamas has killed all those people in Gaza with their actions and the fact that they use their people as human shields. That's where we should be laying the blame here.
Chris, really good, mate, to have you on. Thank you. You look far more better than I do with a young child. I'm absolutely terrible. He looks great. Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO and Royal Navy commander, on Talk Drive. What is it, 22 minutes to 7 o'clock, 22 minutes away from Kev O'Sullivan. I'm off for a wee. I'll see you in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 20 to 7, 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number here until 7 o'clock. Text to 87222. Do please start your message with the word talk. There's one subject, it's weird actually doing this job, because there are certain subjects that really resonate. Harry and Meghan always resonates, as do potholes. Today we learned repairing the potholes blighting Britain's roads would cost, I mean, this is staggering by anybody's imagination. Apparently it will cost 17 billion, figures show, and efforts to repair the nation's transport network lack strategic planning and only amount to a short-term solution. This is the annual Local Authority Road Maintenance Report. That was commissioned by the Asphalt Industry Alliance. The survey found that 1 in every 6 miles of the local road network, that's 35,000 miles in all, will lack structural integrity. Basically, it's full of holes. 17 billion. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, said that is a grossly over-exaggerated figure. There's only one person to talk to about this, a motoring journalist of the most supreme talent and ability and reputation. No, we couldn't get him. Quentin Wilson, good evening. How are you, sir?
Fine, how are you?
I'm not bad for an old man, sir, approaching 60 and feeling quite depressed about it. 17 billion to deal with the roads. Is that a genuine... Richard Tice from Reform challenged that. He said that's ludicrous. Is that right, figure-wise?
It is right, and it's this Asphalt Industry Alliance figure, which is produced every year. You and I talk about this on a regular yearly basis, don't we, Jeremy?
Yep.
That this backlog of repairs gets worse and worse. And the crazy thing is that we've spent 20 billion repairing the roads in the last decade, and they're no better. In 23, 24, 25, I think we spent nearly 150 million. And there's been no discernible improvement. So the question here I want to pose is that clearly we're not repairing these roads properly, are we?
Yeah.
We're just putting a dollop of asphalt in a hole, smoothing it over, clearing off, and then the rain gets in, it freezes and it cracks, and 3 months later, the same pothole appears. And you can drive past these friendly potholes that you know so well, that open up and close and open. It's nuts. So where is the voice of the road repair industry? Because I don't hear them talking about all these new things that they could be doing, all these plans. It's completely silent.
It's really interesting, actually, because we've done a sort of show today without dragging you into a political debate about how seemingly our priorities seem so wrong in the United Kingdom, and we seem to, whether it's benefits or migration, I'm not trying to get you involved in that, but we seem to sort of be saying to a lot of people who have been here all their lives and paid their stamp, you know, you're at the back of the bleeding queue. And you feel that about drivers, really, because you've just said there's no discernible improvement. That's an appalling admission. We're supposed to be, what, the 5th most successful country in the world. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time in Barbados, right? I can honestly tell you the worst roads I've ever, but there are roads in England now down on the south coast that are an and we laugh about it, but it's a disgrace. We're supposed to be a leading country in the world. So why is it a bit like, I mean, again, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, not you and I, but we were talking on the show about military cuts and how it's been for 15 years just the easiest thing in the world, just to cut the military. We're in the middle of a cut, everything will be fine, and suddenly, oh my God, the world's changed. It's be the same with the motor industry and certainly roads, Quentin, that just not enough attention has been given to our infrastructure in terms of roads.
But you know why that is, Jeremy? Because we have, a political elite in Westminster who don't drive. Yeah. And who don't go up and down the motorways like you or I do, or down the high street and have to swerve these potholes. And motoring and cars and roads and fuel, it's not a priority because they don't know enough about it. A lot of them don't drive. So this is a hangover from all that kind of 4 wheels bad, 2 wheels good stuff. And we're paying for it now. And where are these voices that say we can fix this because we've got the technology, we've got the new surfacing? There's a little company in Cambridge called Asphalt, the Asphalt Group, and they talk about building roads that last. And I couldn't agree more.
It's good to hear.
When we fix these things, fix them once, not have to do it again and again and again. And I have to sort of say, does it suit the industry to actually keep repairing these things? Because, well, it's an infinite paycheck, isn't it?
I mean, but listen, then you'll get me on a huge debate. It took 8 years to build Wembley, and the budget was 12 times what it was set out to be. In Abu Dhabi, they decided to build the Yas Marina, to build the Formula One track. They said it'll take us 1,000 days, and it took 999, and it came in on budget. And it's the greatest thing I've ever seen in the history of my life. And that sums up this country in my mind.
I know, and I go to Dubai, and I look at it, and the roads are like unrolled silk, and they get built in 15 minutes.
They get built and they last, and we can all say, oh, well, that's because, well, why don't we drill here and we might have some money? Can I ask you, somebody, I'm not trying to wind you up because we've actually agreed for once, somebody said that the reason there are so many potholes is to be blamed on the electric cars because they're much heavier and they cause more potholes, yeah?
So let's just think that one through, shall we, Jeremy?
Yep.
Electric cars heavier than combustion cars? Yes, absolutely. 44-ton lorry, a bit heavier than that. 30-ton truck. There are much, much heavier vehicles on the road that cause the damage. And trying to pin it all on electric cars, that's nuts.
How are we going to... Nick Dubois has been on. I love my Tesla, Jez. It's my third. Stop being so bloody grumpy. They're great fun and never have a charging problem. Now, here's the thing. As we head to allegedly net zero, although Kemi Badenoch today said that's unacceptable and isn't going to happen, how do you and all the proponents of electric vehicles, and you've tried to sell one to me, I can't have it, but on a serious note, this quest, nobody wants to buy them, Quentin. How are you going to change people's minds? Serious question.
Wait a minute. Look, the sales of electric cars are up, and they have been consistently up over the last 3 or 4 years. We're now at, what, 24% market penetration of battery-only EVs. And you look around London, you go down motorways, there are lots and lots of electric cars. There's nearly 1.4 million. They will come, but we need better infrastructure. The prices need to come down, and people just need to understand the batteries do last. I mean, I saw a Tesla the other day with 600,000 miles on it, and the battery is still good. You know, I've driven one with 250,000 miles. It's fine. My car...
But how long does it take to charge up before it runs out, like my Hoover? How long does it take?
25 minutes on a fast charger, 20 minutes sometimes. But
and how long do you get for that? How many miles? How many miles for that?
You'll get 300.
Oh, right, okay.
So literally, I'm at the charger eating my Burger King, and before I finished it, the charging is telling me I've got to move the car.
You're promoting Burger King. I mean, now I'm going to have to say, I mean, Jody went to Five Guys and was disappointed it was a burger joint. Quentin, you are a legend. We love having you on. Thank you very much indeed. Quentin Wilson on Talk Drive. It's true about Jody. She's hovering outside. Can come in, Jode. It's okay. Come in, Jody, come on. No, standing outside the door. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. She literally won't come in the studio. Oh, she's just stuck something up. There you are, giving me an idea of time. 10 to 7.
Here's the thing, he says, Farage is incapable of saving the UK. In office, he would do massive damage. We love our country. We'll fight on. Are you incapable of saving the UK, and would you do massive damage in office?
Is this the same Ben Habib who lost election after election? Is this the same Ben Habib who, when he was deputy leader of the party, failed to get any of the candidates vetted, which caused us such problems at the general election, and failed to get us to stand in more than 12% of seats last year? Is that the same fella?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
thank you as ever to the A-team today, to Ryan, to the amazing Jodie, to the brilliant Amy, to Mozzie and nobody else. Listen, thank you very much indeed, by the way. Oh, she's off. If you do want to be on in the next 10 minutes, 0344 499 1000. Let's head to Windsor. It's where I used to live. Mick, hello, my friend.
Hello, Jeremy. Thank you for taking my call. It's a pleasure to speak to you this evening.
Whereabouts in Windsor?
In between Staines and Windsor. So you head to one of the little villages just outside, you'll find me there.
Datchet?
Near there, yes, near there.
By the way, I have to tell you about Datchet. The big hotel in Datchet is absolutely rammed with migrants. You know that, don't you?
It's a sad situation, but unfortunately, the way we're going, Jeremy, it's the classic playbook of attacking the immigrants and attacking people on benefits because they can't afford the bill. And the credit card's maxed out. So who are they going to attack? Poor people and immigrants. It's a shame we're going down this route. The real route they should be going down is going down a wealth tax, then making rich people pay the money they should be paying on their assets.
It's an easy way out, though, isn't it, that, Mick?
No, but the thing is, though, the people...
What does that do? What does that do, though? The problem is, and listen, I love debate, I do, but here's the thing. To me, that's just the laziest way of dealing with a situation. You say, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Anybody who... No, hear me out. Anybody who's successful, we'll tax them more. What people like you, when they say that, with the greatest respect, don't understand is that anybody then who is successful, who generates companies, growth, jobs and whatever, is going to bugger off and live somewhere else because in the end, they'll be paying so much tax. There has to be an admission, Mick, that yes, that's right to a degree, OK, but there also has to be an admission, right, that there are people in our society who are taking advantage of our systems.
I'm a great admirer of your work, Jeremy, but I'm literally clenching my fist as I was listening to you there. It's quite an annoying thing because you said it was quite easy, but where I fear is what you say. It's quite easy to cut people's benefits, but it's also quite easy to put a wealth tax on people because that would generate over £138 million a week.
But you're not answering what I've just said to you.
But the thing is, when I say wealth tax, the problem is this is the biggest problem we have because the media distort what a wealth tax actually is. I'm talking wealth on assets. That's the interest paid on your mortgage. That's your mortgage. That's people who own gold, people who own the oil, the gas, assets. What
message are you sending to anybody who becomes successful? Then we're going to screw you to take.
Successful?
Why are you not talking about the people who are taking advantage of a system, who don't want to work, who are coming to this country and haven't paid anything and are getting treated better? Pardon?
But, Jeremy, they're small fry.
What do you mean they're small fry?
I've seen PIP assessments. I know paramedics that have to go on those and do the actual assessments because you can't get a paramedic anymore because they're doing the PIP assessments, by the way. And I know that the assessment starts from the moment you arrive in the car park. Like, you're on camera, they see how you walk in. The door handle, how you turn the door handle is assessed. The arrows on the floor, it's assessed.
So you think that you think we should be more caring to people on benefits and immigrants and tax wealthy people more?
I think, but the conversation's been very distorted against people on benefits and immigrants because they can't afford the credit card. When the credit card's available and can be used, suddenly...
Do you think it's morally right? Here's a question, I have to go, but I really appreciate your viewpoint. Do you think it's morally right, if you are not escaping a war-torn country, to come to a country whose infrastructure, public services and so much is creaking and be treated, and this is important, better than people who have been here all their life and paid their stamp? Do you think that's fair?
And the caveat is, I can understand the viewpoint, but they are small fry people. I've been.
You haven't answered the question.
No, sorry, Jimmy. I've got to put a point to it. I've been inside the immigration hotels as part of my job, and I've seen the people that are in those immigration hotels. And I'd say the 1% that you're talking about isn't the other 99% that are escaping.
Have you been and seen any pensioners who'll freeze to death this winter up north?
That's it. But again, a wealth tax would solve that problem. But no one ever goes, oh, we need to tax rich people more and poor people need to pay less tax and middle class people need to pay less tax. And this is the problem where we're going because now the problem is we've got a situation where the credit card's absolutely maxed out. But one thing that I would like to say that actually, when George Osborne did the cuts, one thing he didn't cut was the actual PIP amount. He actually raised it with inflation.
Listen, I've got to go, but it's great to have you on, and we appreciate you, and that's what it's about. It's about debate. That is Mick in Windsor, just outside 0344 499 1000. Billy, final call of the day. Billy, you're on Talk Drive. What you got?
Mick, go home and get a big heavy door and slam your fingers in it and come back to reality, man. Clown. Anyway, Jeremy, your last caller.
Yes.
Clown.
Yeah.
He sounds like he's rebelling against Mummy and Daddy's bank. Anyway, I have a friend. He's on PIP. He's on everything you can imagine. Fake alcoholic. And I was in the bar talking to him one day. I says, "How much roughly do you think you're on?" "I don't know," he says. "My social worker says I'm just over 30 grand.
30 grand. Now, you're going to say something. You're going to say something that I have said for years, and people, when I tell them this, they think I'm mad, and then they have a go at me. Why don't you tell everybody that he gets £30,000, and also tell everybody in the United Kingdom who's listening what he gets extra money for, Billy?
Having a dog.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can get £17. You can get £17.65 a month from the benefit system to feed your dog, which, with the greatest of respect, whether people like this or not, I think is also something that gets played by several people. Don't you, Billy?
Oh, don't get me started. Anyway, thank you. Great show as always.
Good man. Thank you, Billy. Final call. We'll do one more. We're going to Dorset. Philippa, whereabouts in Dorset?
Poole.
What?
Poole in Dorset.
Nice. You've got 2 minutes. What you got? Tell me.
Right, I have been on the equivalent of PIP
Yes.
since 1979. Born with cerebral palsy, 2 pounds 2 ounces I weighed. I was born at 26 weeks. I have got a disability that does not change. In fact, it gets worse. It cannot be cured unless by an act of God. I have now got to be reassessed yet again for PIP. Why? It's going to cost the government more money to reassess people like myself with multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, Parkinson's, all those debilitating disabilities. Why are they doing that again to us?
Don't understand it. Again, I've been saying it all afternoon. It seems to me that the point is missed, that the genuine people who quite rightly deserve treatment, help rather, are being put through the ringer again. What do you make, very quickly, I haven't got much time and I don't mean to be rude at all, what do you make of the people that screw the system?
Gosh, I think that the people that screw the system actually is a small percentage of people. But I think that what's happened is, because of COVID, people have taken advantage of COVID. They've seen they can have an easy life being at home and not necessarily work, and they have milked the system for as much as they possibly can to get out of working.
Philippa, I don't want you to think me rude, but Kev is on, so please forgive me, but I really appreciate your call. I'm sorry you have to go through another assessment, but I agree with you, the genuine people, and Kev would as well. We shouldn't be attacking the genuine people.
I don't think it's a small percentage. I think it's a big percentage. Loads of people